All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the May 19th, 2020 Board of Education meeting at 7:19 p.m. Sarah, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bellafiore,
Here.
Mr. Berardi,
Here.
Mr. Biondo,
Here.
Mr. Lutston,
Here.
Mr. Mazzano,
Here.
Mr. Palazzo,
Here.
Mr. Trabuzio.
Here. Okay, thank you, Sarah. A quorum has been established. Everybody, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, nation under God,
One nation,
indivisible, with peace, justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Biondo, can you read the mission statement of the district?
Yes, sir. The mission of North School District 80 is inspiring educational excellence in a nurturing environment.
Thank you, sir. Before I ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented and or modified, any discussion on it after review from any board member? Okay, therefore, can I have a motion to approve
Yes,
the agenda
sorry.
as presented?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I got a question.
Whoa.
Sorry. I couldn't hit the
I
mute
waited
button.
for a couple. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
All right, just that for the Midwest Computer Products, 16, that's for the whiteboard, that's for one?
What is your question? I'm sorry.
It says here for Midwest Computer Products, $16,195 and some change for an interactive whiteboard and audio system. That's one?
Yes, that's one.
Yes.
Those are
Wow. Okay.
one we put in each classroom, correct. And ours are aging.
One we put in each classroom? Or-
An interactive
Okay, but that's just for one that we have.
smart board, right. Each classroom needs one for all of our online curriculum, even when we're in-person learning.
That quote though for 4 classrooms?
Okay, so it's for 4 classrooms. It's not just one whiteboard that we're getting. Okay, so they're priced individually. Okay, all right. That's my question then when I saw that. Thank you.
Sure.
And then one more question real quick.
Sure.
Can you hear me? Okay, on 17J for the monthly bills, there's CDW 148. Is this in direct relation to the proposal that's on the agenda tonight?
Yes, sir. It will be in relation to the CARES Act presentation. Yes. Yep.
Any other questions by anyone? Okay, then I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented or modified.
I'll
Motion.
make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Biondo. Who seconded for the record?
Trabuzio.
Okay, board member Trabuzio second. Sarah, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Biondo,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
Yes.
Mr. Berardi,
Yes.
Mr. Lutston,
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah. The motion carries. Correspondence, there is no correspondence tonight. Public participation due to the fact that these meetings are being held remotely. I do not believe the Board of Education received any email or any questions. If I'm incorrect, I'd ask any board member to correct me. Or Ms. Palmer, Ms. Guzik, if there's any questions for the board that's come in, now would be the time. Is there any questions? All right. Moving on to FOIA requests. The district did receive one FOIA request. Moving forward in regards to FOIA requests, on the advice of the district's legal counsel, in future board meetings, FOIA requests, the name of the person making the request, the date of the request, the basis, and the information that was asked will be mentioned at the board meeting. This will promote more transparency than the board, I believe, already is. I'm going to also ask Ms. Palmer to talk to Mr. Job, our IT coordinator, and have these FOIA requests moving forward. Anything in the future, I would like them posted on the district website. It's very common in districts, and again, on the advice of our legal counsel, they recommend that as well, unless any board member has issue with that.
Now, could you start tonight, or you're saying next?
I'm saying moving forward. In the future, any requests that we get moving forward, but I wanted to bring it up to the board first. I wanted to let them know what legal our counsel recommended and moving forward. Unless any board member has issues.
Can we make a note of that on the actual website for FOIA, that due to the fact being public information, should we notify the person at the request point that will be posted?
I will check with legal on that, Tim. That's a great question. I understand the basis of your question and it's warranted. I will check with legal, and I would suggest we go on the advice of what legal recommends. So if a notation on our website says that the FOIA request will be posted, if that is recommended by the attorneys, then sure. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Moving forward with presentations. There's a few tonight in the order I have it, curriculum fees being the first one, Ms. Palmer and Ms. Guzik.
Wonderful. I will share my screen so that you can see my presentation. Or so the Russians would have us believe. Yes, here we go. Okay. I have again, here we go. Yay. All right, our first presentation tonight. Can everyone see the first slide? All right.
No, it's not up.
No, we still there. Thank you.
Oh,
It's loading.
It says I'm screen sharing.
You're
You
good.
are now, we
First
see it.
The title page.
Title page, everybody good?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay.
yes.
So we start tonight with our very important District 80 setting of curriculum fees, band fees, and athletic fees for 2021. We need to decide this tonight because we will start our enrollment, our residency and registration process in June before the next board meeting. So we want this to be in place. As you know, you've already approved preschool and kindergarten fees. So these are only for 1st through 8th grade. I would hope I could present. Okay. And, oh, goodness. So,
By the keypad?
I'm looking. Here we go. Okay, so curriculum fees cover educational materials students use. So these are not for professional development of staff. These are for consumable and online curriculum, things like workbooks, science supplies. And so we want to make sure everyone understands that these are direct costs that students participate with. This year, a major theme of our curriculum fees presentation is that we have sought to reduce the fees wherever we can. And we were able to do so in 1st through 8th grade. For example, at Giles, for next year, we have taken a few of the items off that we have had in the past. Things like planners. We are going to use an online planner that is free. We will have plenty of paper. We do not need to charge for paper. We are changing the way we have art and music at Giles. And we're taking away a couple of other fees due to some changes in our curriculum. Go ahead, Michelle.
So at Lee, we are doing the t-shirt as well, but we will be purchasing a beginning of the year t-shirt for our newest students, kindergarten and our preschool children, to welcome them to Lee School, because that is most of the time welcoming them to District 80. We've also cut back our paper fees, our scopes books, our science scope books. We're going to be taking most of that curriculum online instead of having a book. We've cut back on Freckle. Last year we were running, or this year that we're in, we were having Freckle and our math curriculum, which has a MyPath online piece, and we've decided to cut that back. And of course, we don't have the second step curriculum fee that we had last year. We're still running second step. We just don't have to have the fee that we had last year. So those are some of our reductions in fees for Lee.
So our 1st through 4th grade fees, as you can see, are reduced from last year.
Yep, this is right in line with kindergarten fee, which is $260 for full day kindergarten, $250 for half day kindergarten. So right in line, you'll see the difference in the $7 for 3rd grade and for 4th grade in a moment, but that is basically a recorder, which is a musical instrument, and the planner. We've decided in 4th grade to stay with a paper planner. We're not quite ready for the online planner piece yet in 4th grade.
Our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders reflect that $50 reduction. The 5th graders have a few extra items that they need as they transition to junior high, and those include a few items that you'll see in a moment. Speech only and alternative placement students are charged the technology fee because we do provide alternative technology to those places. Here is Lee again.
So here's the specifics in Lee. We're looking at a new ELA curriculum, which we're asking you to approve tonight, which I presented to you last month, called Super Kids. So that is a great bulk of our ELA curriculum, our dollars there. Our math is continuing with the workbook online. Our social emotional, we're looking at a few dollars. Science is continuing online. The PE, art, and music will still be there for Lee, some structured play materials, and then we are starting a new PBIS program at Lee this coming year. So our subtotal then comes out to that $260. I believe last year we were in the $299s and $320, $326 on our fees, so we have considerably cut Lee fees this year.
Giles, here's the enumeration of what you're paying for. Like Lee, we have the technology and activity fee. The bulk of the money does tend to go toward ELA. So much of what we use the money for is reading and books and supplementals. Improving reading is a real big focus. Fitgrams, our PE equipment, We ask that we replenish that each year just for PE. We have a new updated digits and envisions program with math, and it is a significant savings, which was really nice to see. So it's online as well as a workbook, all for $18 a year per student. The math supplemental, which helps with students' skill gaps in mathematics, science, social studies. We are asking the Board of Education to adopt. We're going to introduce that at this board meeting and then ask you to officially adopt it at the next board meeting. But it is a curriculum for our new social studies everyday class, and Spanish, of course, and STEAM. So those fifth graders need PE shirt and shorts. They need a heart rate strap that they could use for all 4 years. And that is an essential part of that curriculum. And they also have a Spanish textbook that they also use for all 4 years. If students are selected not to take Spanish, which is a rare occurrence, but it does happen, we do provide paper planners and some more resource materials. Usually those students have an IEP and need some extra materials for their resource class. So that money is reallocated to them and to that. We are asking the board to approve band fees and athletics fees that stay exactly the same as the last 2 school years. At this time, we believe the band overall music to the district would be the same or held relatively constant to this year as far as a budget item. And also is relatively the same. It may depend on the teacher negotiation as far as stipends and things like that. But at this time, this is what we believe would be budget neutral for next school year. And this is where you can ask your questions. Thank you very much.
I'll start with a question or two. Ms. Palmer or Ms. Guzik. And thank you for the presentation. I see the numbers that are presented, and parents in the community, myself being one of them. Let's take example, if the pandemic goes into the fall and we don't have school, is there a plan in place? Do some of these fees get adjusted because of that? For example, let's take kindergarten. What is the district's plan if there's e-schooling into the fall? Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, Mrs. Guzik.
Sure. So if we are, go ahead.
Well, I think it's,
You want me to stop?
yeah, go ahead. And then I'll chime in after. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. So even in the e-learning environment that we're in currently, the children who are in full day are receiving a full day of instruction, where the children who are half day are only receiving a half day of instruction. So we aren't looking at a change in any of the fees. In any case, we would still be moving forward with all the curriculum. The children are receiving the curriculum that we have planned back in May of last year for our curriculum. So nothing has really changed in that way. They're still receiving. I'm actually very proud of the teachers are teaching new standards. We're not just teaching things that are, you know, reshuffling things that we've taught before or just revisiting standards. We're actually teaching new standards.
And I don't want that point to be lost, because not every district has chosen to do that. And I think our teachers transitioned beautifully to an online curriculum and continued to introduce new material as well as review old material, but really kept learning going. I think we're going to see that our students, over 90% of our students have engaged fully with online learning. And that speaks volumes about our teachers. So as far as kindergarten is concerned, and as we move forward, we'll be speaking about some new enhanced remote e-learning. I mean, this is the first time we've ever done this. If we were challenged to do this in the fall in some way, we are already talking about enhancing the live instruction. And I'll get to that more in our next presentation, but that would definitely speak to kindergarten, having more live instruction throughout their day. Other questions?
Thank you. Anybody else?
Are they still able to get the interventions that they were getting from before?
So the fees
I think
reflect,
your question, sir. Go ahead.
well, the fees do reflect supplementals. Where it says supplementals, those are the interventions that students receive. So curricularly, we will have that in place no matter what our learning environment. But maybe Michelle can speak to what else you might mean.
If you're speaking about interventions with the children, math and reading interventions is a struggle at this time. But as we're putting together our new plans with our with more in-person meetings like this, which we can see our struggle too, we'll be able to meet in small groups and have those intervention times even better than we are now. We do have a lot of teletherapy going on with our students, with our staff as well. We're able to do that.
Because I know that some have received a little bit, or rather, some people have been more involved than others in doing certain things online, like you said. And I was just wondering if we're able to bring that all out to the kids for the extra learning. Because right now, we're going to have a struggle with them, especially if we don't go back in the fall.
Right. Well,
Because
and we are working on many plans in that regard. In many ways, our students have continued with interventions. At Giles, we have iReady reading and math, and students have been doing lessons throughout the course of all of the e-learning, which are individualized, targeted skill development in reading and math. So, and just today I heard that 99% of my 8th graders completed all of their math assignments, for example, and I know that really most of our students are completing their work. We're very impressed. So, and that includes, you know, some students who needed extra help or modified or accommodated curriculum. So.
okay.
Any other questions about fees?
Yes, I do have one. I had 2 different parents that approached me over the course of the week asking about the kindergarten. And mainly due to the fact that they claimed that they had signed up, or either signed up already or intended on signing up for the full day. And the question that came up from both of them was the fees were derived around what it costs per classroom and this and that. If it does stay with e-learning, can the amount of students be handled with the e-learning with fewer employees, therefore reducing the fee, or are we stuck in the contract?
At this point, we have hired our staff for next year. However, we have been very conservative with our hiring. At this time, we have 4 kindergarten teachers instead of 5. We are watching the numbers very carefully, and we will not hire that 5th employee unless we absolutely need it. So we're being very cautious in hiring this year. That being said, we still would charge the fee in order to provide that, you know, live instruction and that personal interaction that the teachers are all doing every day. So, you know, it still pays for those teachers.
Excellent. Thank you for the response. And one more question. Can you unshare the screen so we could have our screen back?
Yes, hold on. All right, you're back. Yay.
Ms. Palmer, speaking of the numbers, where are our numbers at right now? Preschool signups and kindergarten.
So right
Sure.
now we're at about 32 preschool signups. We, our special ed parents need to come and sign up. We know they're coming. We right now have 10 who have paid, who are not our special ed population, and then the rest we know are going to be here because they're here this year for our EC program. Then in kindergarten, we have 67 kindergartners signed up, 13 of whom are half day.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right.
So if there's no other questions on curriculum, Ms. Palmer, CARES Act and technology presentation?
Sure. I will go out and hold on. So later we will make sure we, you will see an action item to approve the fees. Okay. So here we go. Share screen. All right. Oh, this is the wrong one. This is the next one. We will get this in. I thought I had them all lined up in order. Okay. All right. All right, here we go. Can you see the screen? No? All right,
Not yet.
not yet. Okay. Here you go. Yay, there it is.
Here we go.
Okay, so as you may or may not know, there is a federal flow-through grant called the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. So on March 27th, President Trump signed the CARES Act, and it provided money to the states to flow through to the school districts for any costs that they deemed necessary to support, for example, remote e-learning or any budget shortfalls that might have resulted from COVID-19. Norwich District 80's allotment is $129,408 of this federal flow-through money. So there are several options that districts can use this for. They can pay for free meals for eligible students. They can certainly use the money for buy online curriculum, train teachers in teaching online, buying hardware, software, or connectivity. They can use the money for mental health services and supports, for summer and supplemental programs, just to name a few. So yesterday, they released the act. We all attended a webinar, and last night I wrote the grant, pushed send, and this morning I spoke to our representative, and they have approved our grant. So tonight, if the board sees fit to approve our spending of this money in the way that that we're going to talk about, then we literally can submit the order right away. They are very interested in getting this money to the districts as soon as possible. So as soon as I put the order through, I can go ahead with the expense report and we can try to recap these dollars. So what would we recommend? We have been talking with board members, with parents, obviously amongst ourselves in administration, with teachers, and our biggest need that this whole pandemic has uncovered is that we in District 80 need to have one-to-one computing for each of our learners. So right now we are one-to-one Chromebook from 3rd through 8th grade, but we do not have individual Chromebooks for preschool, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders. And even if we are 100% back to school in the fall, we all anticipate that our sharing of school supplies or sharing of things like computers is not going to be a safe or wise thing to have in place for a while. So we anticipate that this would be our biggest need. Allowing us to invest in these Chromebooks would make remote learning possible for all of our learners, making live instruction available for every learner from preschool on up. It would support learning even in a in-person way, but everyone's best guess is that we're going to be in person for some part of next year, but we don't know if what that's going to look like. So this purchase is the biggest expense we have. And each year in the technology budget, we budget to replace 2 grade levels of computers, really 2.5. And so we would still budget to do that, but this money would provide yet another 2.5 grade levels worth of computers, really almost 3 grade levels worth of computers. And it would change the way that we are able to serve our students. There are many, many other options, but, and I'd love to discuss, some of your ideas at this time, but I think this will really provide the biggest and widest touch to the district. So.
One of the exciting things for us at Lee is our new K2 curriculum is all online.
Right.
So if we do end up going online at some point next year, we would the Chromebooks would be really useful tool in order for the students to be able to experience the whole curriculum, assessments, books, activities, everything online, and to be able to work with their teachers through that. Right now, that's a limited thing for us.
So this $129,000 in combination with technology budget money would provide 530 new Chromebooks. This would replace 2 grade levels. It would fully round out our Chromebooks for the district. Everyone would have a device that is up to date, operable, and ready to learn no matter where they are. We chose we got 4 quotes. You can see them in board book. And we chose the CDW based on price. And we really like the model that we chose. So the model we've found to be the most durable and really the least repairs that we've had of any of the models that we've had before. All right, so questions?
Yes, I have 2. One, looking at the quotes, there are sleeves mentioned on that. I know currently the one my child has does not have any type of sleeve. Is this something new? And if so, why are we looking at sleeves?
So well, sorry, Tim.
They have,
your
all
should have
Chromebooks have
a
sleeves.
Chromebook case. Yeah, everybody should have one. I don't know where hers went, but Yeah, and one of the things that we've been talking about is actually right now the Chromebook sleeves that we provide do not have any sort of carrying handle. So we may have to modify the quote a little bit to have a Chromebook case that kids can carry. There's some indication that we may be looking at not having backpack travel to and from school to limit, germ spread. So we'll get to that. But the big cost and what the CARES Act itself money that would cover is the Chromebooks themselves. The technology budget money would not be expanded this year in response to this e-learning need, but we could use that money for different kinds of cases. And you had a question. Yeah.
Yep. The second question, does the district currently own outright all of the Chromebooks that we have, or are some of them on a rotating lease?
Excellent question. We lease our Chromebooks. This particular money would actually allow us to get ahead. So we would not be leasing, we would purchase these outright, which is a cost savings overall. And it would not impact our budget into the future. The technology fee would then allow us that we do charge flows through, and we would be able to finish out the leases for the Chromebooks ahead of schedule. It's really a dual purpose when we are able to purchase these out. It really helps our budgeting.
So going on that, along with the budget, I mean, the initial purpose of the lease, if I recall correctly, was there was an expected longevity with the technology of approximately 2 to 3 years. And that's why we were leasing. With the financial situation of the district and everything going on, are we going to be shooting ourselves in the foot with a purchase that we can't trade in for a new technology? How long are these expected to last?
So our Chromebooks have lasted 4 years, which really is nice because it's kind of a perfect breaking point of, grade school and then junior high. You get one device for each learning location basically, but we anticipate that they would last 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And it's interesting, Job and I have had conversations about repairs lately, and we have far fewer repairs now that students are only at home. We do offer, by the way, students to swap out their Chromebook if they're having trouble with it. They are able to do that any day that we distribute the food at Giles or Lee. But we've had far fewer repairs, basically because the wear and tear of taking it back and forth to school is not happening. So we're finding that, they may even last 5 years. I don't know.
Stephanie, I have a question for you, unless anybody else has something first.
I'd like to just say something if I can, just jumping in here. Back in the fall of last year, we as the board obviously adapted we accepted the e-learning, obviously for weather-related type of days. So if we had bad weather and inclement weather, we could use e-learning as a way of not having to make up those days and, at the end of the school year. So obviously we were all thrown into this uncertainty. Obviously the world was not prepared for the COVID pandemic. And one of the things that I feel as a parent and also a board member is I didn't think we had to pivot based off of what the governor was telling us. And unfortunately, it did not allow us to come up with a longevity plan. And I think that moving forward, I like this idea. And if we need to put the technology and the kit in the hands of the younger students, our K through second, and knowing that we're about to approve a new curriculum that will be online. I know that a lot of parents have expressed their frustrations with the packets, not that how they've had to get them, because all of that was flawlessly handled by your team. I think it was more of the frustrations of once the packets were received at home, the frustration set in with parents because they had to sit there and work with their kids. And as we all know, school today isn't the school that we parents had when we were, younger. So I think moving forward with our e-learning, and if everything that we keep hearing from the governor, did I get kicked out?
No,
Nope, you're good.
no, I just unshared. There you go.
Oh. I know with the uncertainty and knowing if we're going to come back in the fall, I really think that the district really needs to sit down and come up with a longevity plan, one that has goals and priorities, and we need to have a direction for all our teachers. And what I mean by that is there's been an inconsistency of learning, and I really don't feel that as a Board of Education, we did a service to our students during this pandemic. I mean, we moved as best as we could, but I honestly can tell you out of the 7th grade cohort, I've only heard from 2 people. I've heard from Claudia Triba, who's been amazing, and Bob Biecki. Anybody else? I don't even know if they're there or what. I'm being honest, and I've heard from other parents that some students have had Zoom classroom sessions and some didn't have any. So I think that obviously we were thrown into this. So we need to, if we know we're not going to be back in the fall, we need to come up with a plan. And I'd love to be a part of the team. Whatever it needs, we need to figure out what the goals are, what that new online classroom looks like. And love to hear that we've now going to have additional curriculum K-2 on that. And, we just need to move forward with getting those kids ready to, learn and adapt to that new learning where maybe 2 days a week or 3 days a week, there's face-to-face with a teacher in a classroom setting, just kind of like how we're doing tonight where there's 13 of us online. So that's where I'm at.
I appreciate that, Pasquale. I do want you to know that, it's my understanding that all of our teachers have offered Hangouts. We mostly use Google, so it's Hangouts. And that many of our teachers have expressed, frustration that they offer and then only 3 or 4 kids show up. So it's working together. I think you're absolutely right with parents to make sure they know about these meeting opportunities and to make sure that the kids get there. Do know that it has been a big part of our end of the year planning to talk about 3 different options for the fall. And we've formed teacher teams today. We will be bringing this forward to the board in June, but we will be rolling this out before the end of school. 3 different options for opening up school in the fall. And the teachers are all definitely on board with improving that live connectivity, which we will be able to do knowing that each and every one of our learners has a computer that works and is in their hands. And we can definitely go from there. And then,
and again, I understand,
Yeah.
and I'm just, and we've had to pivot and make decisions based off of week to week by what the governor was cascading down and then down to you and then you to us and, making the decisions, at this on the fly. But, it's been 10 weeks and, the parents are just concerned that some of their students are going to be behind going into the fall. And, obviously, they hear from other friends and families that they have in other school districts that, I think we aren't going to offer a summer school, and I understand, but, other school districts are just now starting to announce there's going to be some sort of summer school assistance for students. So I don't know how they're going to do that, but if there's ways for us to reach out to other districts, find out what they're doing, read their plans, then, maybe that's how we should approach this. Because I think come the fall, we really need to be on board 100%, rocking and rolling with nobody left behind, no pun intended, but
I appreciate
really,
it.
so.
Did you have a question, Sam?
Yeah, I have a couple. So what?
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, no problem, Pasquale. Great questions. Thank you. I'm gonna go on your question a little bit, but before I do that, the board tonight is being asked to approve $148,000 for Chromebooks. We understand as to why. It's to make it one-on-one for everybody, one-to-one. The expectation is to get reimbursed from the federal government in the amount of $129,408. Ms. Palmer, where did that number come from? How do we know that that number has been assigned to our district?
It is in the grant. It's in the Illinois State Board of Education. If anyone wants to look it up, it's on the website, what every district gets. It's a matter of public information.
Okay, so that's not a set amount for districts in the area per se. I don't want to use any specific district, but other districts in our neighborhood or close to us, numbers can be different.
Absolutely. It's based on your Title I allocation, so the number of free and reduced lunch students that you have in your district.
Okay, and to have a secondary question with that, not so much as to when the federal government would then provide that money to our district, but are there rules to the reimbursement process? What I mean is if a purchase is already made for 148,000 and we're expecting 129,408, can that money be put back into the general fund as we look at it like, hey, we fronted the money, it's going back into the fund, or does it have to be used for something else per federal guidelines because that purchase is already made? You understand what I'm trying to ask you?
It comes out of the education fund and goes right back into the education fund as far as which fund it could go to.
No, I'm not worried about which fund it can go to. My question is, when the money comes back to the district, it can then be put back into a fund. They're not requiring you to spend it and show proof that you spend it after you got it.
Oh, no, no, no. You absolutely have to demonstrate that you spent the money on the thing you told them that you were spending it on.
Understand. Okay.
Absolutely.
And then one other question I had, kind of goes with what Pasquale asked you. So from an administrative level in this district, yourself, Ms. Guzik, there's a plan. I know you're going to present us 3 different approaches maybe to returning to school if we do. So are you, from an administrative level, there's going to be a plan in place specifically centered to e-learning that is uniform for all teachers. Is that correct?
Right. So because all of our instructors in the bargaining unit, all of our NEAT members will have one-to-one computers, and everyone will have the opportunity to do a hangout meeting every school day. There will be some basic standards around that. There may need to be a little bit of a, window of options, but yes, the expectation will be live instruction. Now, we couldn't do that this year when we didn't have students with one-to-one capability, but we are going to be setting those standards. We are also going to look at how we count attendance, for example. We're waiting on some guidance from the state on that, but if we are to remote learn in the fall, having that, in-person connection with the teacher will be part of the attendance plan as well. So that will help.
Great, you answered my question. What I would ask you to do is in the future here, when in future presentations, yourself or Ms. Guzik, try to put something together so it can be presented not only to the board, but as we're recording, it goes on the website. When parents call us and ask us certain questions, those questions can be answered as far as the approach to e-learning in the fall. I'd like them to have access to a presentation, if you will.
I appreciate that. In fact, our plan is to roll this out by June 4th, an outline of the 3 different returning to school options. We can't know, right? We're at the mercy of the Illinois Department of Public Health and the governor's office as far as the stay-at-home order. But we can tell our parents and make sure everyone knows that we have outlined plans in place for returning 100% to school, for 100% at home learning and everything in between. So we will get that out and make sure everyone is clear that we've thought through those three options. And this, by the way, is what most districts are talking about. I meet weekly with superintendents from West 40. We talk to our legal team we don't talk, we listen to our legal team and their advice every Friday. Our curriculum assistant superintendents meet weekly, and we're all talking about these three different options for the fall. And really no one, we've never done pandemic school before, I keep saying that, but it's incredibly important for these conversations. And I know, Michelle keeps up with her groups and Kim keeps up with her groups, and we all bring these ideas back to the table to make sure we're doing the best for our students for the fall.
One more follow-up question based on the last thing you just said, Ms. Palmer. Being that you guys do keep up, and I'm sure you do you find that there's a consistency between all your teachers and your staff at this point?
Well, so right now there really can't be, because it's we slimmed down the curriculum, for example. We jettisoned 5th and 6th grade Spanish, for example. So it was a very different approach this spring as far as sort of an emergency e-learning curriculum and instruction plan. We had, 3 grade levels with packets, for example, really 4. And so in the fall, we believe it'll be a much different, and will need to be a much different experience for our learners. It's a very different e-learning school when you start a school year than when you do this, toward the end of a year. And we've got time to plan now, frankly, that we did not have before. So
and I could just comment, the rules and regulations surrounding special education are so much more stringent than what they are for regular education. So, we really had to hit the ground running, and our expectations for staff in the world of special education were very specific. And as you'll see in my presentation later this evening, I have had to be very explicit with staff and with parents in terms of those special services, because we are monitored by the state and federal government.
And I really do think that is a great point. So, okay.
Thank you.
I just would like to say one more thing. When we do roll out the plan, that we have some sort of instructions for the parents, right? An expectation from us, the parents, on what we need you to do. And this is what the school day is going to look like. And if it's going to look like this, where at 8:10, all the kids check in, parents have to, stand behind that with you and your team, because they're going to be an extension. We're all going to be extensions of the teachers. So we just need to communicate that to the parents, so this way they know what the expectations is. I just think this, with what we've been thrown into this spring, the expectation, they didn't know. So, I just think parents kind of left it up to their students, the older ones, to and follow through with their teachers and work with their teachers and checking in and so on and so forth. So yes, we need to keep the parents a part of that process too, if we can.
Absolutely. In fact, they'll have a voice in this process. As Kim will show you, we've already done some surveying, but we will continue to do some surveying and making sure parents have a voice in this for sure.
So the kindergartners and K through, what is it, 3rd grade, you're saying is not 1-to-1 right now?
No.
3rd grade is. K
3rd
through
grade is not kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. No.
Well, how did they have these Google Hangouts or whatever that they have in these other grades with that? I don't understand that. Because I know Reen's been on several different calls with teachers in the younger grades for, like a guest speaker and all that other stuff. So where are they getting the computers from? They're using their own, is what we're saying?
families.
So they're using their own then in that. Okay, all right, that's what I'm
And
asking.
that's not every
I'm
kid.
confused with that.
Yeah.
Not every kid, and it's limited. So you might have a mom or a dad who's working at home, that can take out the half-hour time for the Zoom meeting for their child to be in that meeting, but then needs to get back to work on their own work. So this would allow that computer for that child to be able to be on.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand. I know that there were meetings and classes going on with this, and I was just wondering how that was being done.
Right.
But, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Summer buildings and grounds projects. Ms. Palmer, Mr. Hurley.
Fabulous. All right. That's good that Mr. Hurley is here. Our B&G projects. Here we go. So tonight we are asking the board to make sure they fully understand the projects and take a look at some of the quotes that we've gotten for the work. We are not asking the board to approve any of these projects tonight. We are merely asking you to review these projects and then consider them for the June board meeting, allowing you some time to process and prioritize, and frankly, for us to make sure that we have 3 quotes for each and every part of these projects. So many of these projects were identified by the life safety study as urgent. Some of them were less urgent, but all of them touch in some way the life safety study. For example, the Lee parking lot project. This is removing broken pavement, repairing and replacing drains and pavement surrounding the manhole covers. The scope of the project so far, we've gotten quotes that for the worst one, the one that has had a sawhorse around it all year, which you'll see in this picture. It has been like this pretty much the entire school year. It's sinking in. To repair just that area and the drain below it would be $5,500 according to the quote, but all of the repairs in the parking lot totaling $18,800. So this is to just remind you of the conditions of the Lee parking lot. These are some major pothole areas as well as those drain areas that would need to be patched. Maybe we should stop and ask if there's any questions for each project, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. That company that I got out there was around Thanksgiving. I called Joe Spain from the village just to see who they use, because obviously they have problems like that all the time. And he gave me the company, I forget their name now, but that's who I got the quote from, the company that they use all the time. And he could have done it, if you recall, he could have done it right then because we had kids out of school, but you know, it was a big dollar amount to turn around and say yes to immediately. But you know, I will get further quotes if, you know, we got to fix it anyway. And with projects like this, I always get 3 quotes. But I know they're going to be very competitive. You know, we're not going to get a whole lot better than that for a reputable company. And I was hopeful that with the 4 quotes, I think I talked to Lou and Frank about this a bit, the 4 quotes I would have hoped, okay, it would be like 3 times the price, not almost 4 times. You know what I mean? He didn't really cut a break on doing the 4 of them. And keep in mind now, that is mostly the manhole areas, like it's totally depleted underneath the 4 of them. This one is obviously the worst, but the other 3 are going to be equally as bad, you know, in a year or so. It doesn't really address, you know, repaving. Even some of the pictures Stephanie has there, just some of the other asphalt is quite bad, and that would be almost another part of that. So it would be at least 55 to fix that one hole. And then I was looking into it, you know, from a bricklayer viewpoint, because, you know, you can do that, you can redo that piping with masonry. And I've worked on projects like that before myself, but, you know, it wouldn't be feasible to do that in-house with liability and, just to do the job properly. So again, I will get 2 more quotes. I'd be hopeful I might get someone cheaper, but it won't be much, it will be quite expensive to do the 4 of them. So that's.
So even though that project is very expensive, the next project is very cheap. Are there any questions?
I have questions.
Yes.
Okay, that sewer that has the horse around it, you guys, that has to be fixed. That's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Oh yeah, no, I'm aware of
Somebody
that.
drives on that thing and the car goes into that hole. It could be a bad situation for us, especially because we know it's there. And as far as the replacement, are they going to replace the whole blacktop, or are we just cold patching?
No, they would replace. Excuse me. They would replace the area that they worked on. They would make that perfect right in that particular area. But those other areas, I ended up cold patching a bit last year, but that really is a temporary band-aid.
It is. It's just now. My last one on this is: can we get that one done for 5,500, and they'll be, since we're not getting multiple done, we'll still get that price, or is that the price if we do multiple? Because you guys, if you haven't seen it, drive over there and look down into that. I mean, I'm surprised a child or a cat hasn't gone in there yet, but
yeah, there's probably small animals living down there now.
There's got to be something.
But yeah, no, we're aware of that, and I've it blocked off, and I know it needs to be done, and that's where, some of these projects, it is it's a good few grand, so fair enough, we have to put it on this list and stuff like that. But I'm aware it's going to be done this summer. If I'm waiting for an approval to do it, so be it. But I got to do it.
I have a question. Let me ask you guys this question, and maybe we've answered it on a previous call, and I just didn't understand it. But is there any way that, especially the one with where the sewer is, the one with the drain, is that anything maybe we can reach out to the MWRD to find out if that's something they'd be willing to split the repair 50-50?
Actually reached out to them, Pasquale.
Okay. And then the other thing is, if the village, and you said, Pat, or you talked to Joe, maybe the next time the village does a project, maybe we can jump in on the back end of that, and maybe it could save us a little bit of money. I don't know, then versus us doing our own project. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just, if there was anything if we could. But obviously, I drove by Lee the other day, and I did pull into the lot, and that parking lot has gotten significantly worse. And you have to think that when school was in session and parents were picking up their kids, it went from a parking lot to now a drive-through where you have two rows of cars, like 20 deep, all the way to the driveway. And cars are heavy, and the wear and tear on that parking lot, it really has done a number on it. So I agree. Especially the manhole one, that one, you don't need anybody to get hurt, and so.
Yeah.
But we should check the MWRD and see if there's something that they'd be willing to help in or not. I don't know.
Well, in fairness, Stephanie brought that point. She made a good point. She said that to me at the time, and I reached out to them. I reached out to the person who did the project, in the courtyard there, where we had that major sewer problem, and they said, they worked on that area was worked on. If you recall, when the library flooded years ago, I don't know what year it flooded, but prior to me coming, and they were involved with that repair. They didn't do work on it, but they had to sign off on it. And it was actually coincidentally the gentleman who bid this, I forget the company name, he was working on that project years ago for a different contractor. So there is nothing available for us. Union Ridge had some monies come in from Waterrec, because Waterrec had some engineering issues with Union Ridge that there was some degree to fault for what was wrong over with Union Ridge's parking lot.
Wow.
This is more of the drain runoff, the water runoff, that they're not going to touch it because it's on our property basically, and it's not it's not something that they're responsible for at all. But it was worth reaching out to, and they asked me to keep them posted on it too, because we don't need to pull a permit to repair that as such, because we're not adding piping. But he just asked me to keep him abreast of what's going on. But I mean, that's not a whole lot of good to us. But he's aware that we're aware of it, and we need to fix it.
Peter, I have a question for you. Stephanie, if you could you go back to slide number 1? Just with the cost, yes, right there. The 18,800, for example, Peter, is that just to repair and replace tops of drains around 5 different areas? Is that right?
Four areas.
What is the cost? I mean, have you explored this also? And if not, I'm going to ask the board for their thoughts on it. Have you explored what is the cost to just repair the whole parking lot? Not saying we're going to do that or we can afford it, but where are we at with that?
I have not looked into that. It would be very, very high. You know what I mean? It would be, I couldn't even speak to it.
I mean, I only ask that because this board has had discussions on other things, and we thought the amount of things were going to be high, and we did some more homework, and we found some prices to be lower. So
yeah,
I just think the more due diligence that we know what that number is would help us. Those got to get fixed. There's no doubt about it. But my question is, what would it cost to fix the whole lot? But I'm just curious.
right. So at that point you're probably talking about 2 contractors anyway, right? The asphalt guy has nothing to do with the guy repairing that sewer. You know what I mean? So I mean, they could. Some of the companies, they have the capability, but it's 2 different projects in that respect. But no, I can look into that real quickly and easily. I get 3 prices on doing the whole lot and 2 more prices on those repairs. But keep in mind, if I repair that hole is brutal. So say I repair that in a few weeks, and then we get a price from some other contractor to do the whole lot. You're not shooting yourself in the foot by doing the whole lot again now because you just did that little area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could do resurfacing around that work. So that'll be fine.
Yeah, it would be a tighter job to do the whole lot together. But again, to be honest, and you have to be patient with me on this. I'm not used to us potentially having money available for all these projects because for 3 years we were deficit spending, which was fine. And I'm not even making an excuse. I'm just saying I do have to learn. Okay, you know what, Peter, you gotta, like you said, Sam, that whole parking lot could do with a full makeover. It's gotten real bad. Like Pasquale said, 4 or 5 years of, Dr. O'Malley was a proponent for salt, with Jesus out of everything, for the want of a better word. And that didn't either. We didn't have people falling, so you could argue it was effective. But then, like Pasquale says, there's a lot of weight sitting on that.
That's not
there before.
Not my field, but there's no doubt those got to get fixed. I'm just a little more due diligence so the board has some more material to say, this is the cost to fix 4 areas, but this would be the cost to fix the entire lot, repave it. Just as hey, that's the number. You know what I mean?
We can bring that back to the next
meeting.
And Peter, really quick, sorry, Peter, if you check with Pat Rossi, last summer they did the Ridgewood parking lot. So check with him on who they used, and maybe that vendor can come out and take a look at our lot, and maybe as a referral we could get some sort of a break on pricing, or
being that we don't probably plan on doing the whole lot this year. We're not voting today on approving that one, at least that one hole. That one hole has got to.
No, but just giving him some ideas on where he could go to. Like to Sam's point, Sam would like to know if we were to do the whole parking lot, what would the scope of that job cost in comparison of doing those 4 repairs on just those 4 where the drains are. And like I said, I would, why not use the same company that Ridgewood used? Obviously, if they used them, they're a reputable company and must approve the workmanship that, and I mean, they have a little bit more money, but
we may be talking about a bid process over $25,000. So
I think we should go out and have a couple more quotes because that's awfully expensive. And I know everybody knows right now we're in a pandemic. We might be able to get a break if we bid it out, because there's also another $25 million from the state that was just announced Monday for a fast track grant.
Right.
Well, that's fine. Just really quick to sum it up. Lou is right, like I gotta hurry up and fix that, but there is nobody in there. I'll block it off. If it's next month's board meeting where I've put 3 prices for doing a whole lot, 2 other prices for that particular spot, you know, I can do it a month and a day after today or whatever. That's fine to me, that's fine. But I need to get it done, but I will, like Sam said, due diligence, I'll find out, I get 5, 6 other prices for the 2 options. Union Ridge obviously did that work as well, so I'll reach out to those guys for that project. And I have my directors group that I always reach out to anyway. So I'll get those numbers, and if we have to wait a month for that one to repair, it'll be okay, Lou, I think.
Thanks, Pat.
Just to throw something out, Sam, I was going to actually ask the same question you just asked, but I wanted to tailor on because I've seen some stuff in a couple other communities. You know, businesses are hard up for work right now, and maybe something to just pop a question. This would be more directed towards you, Ms. Palmer. Is, you know, the Parkway, which is the village's property, is in pretty bad disarray as well. Considering it would be obviously a larger contract, a larger quote, is there any way to maybe see if the village would be interested in teaming up and doing the Parkway and the parking lot for, you know, getting a discount on doing that big of a thing? Is that a possibility to team up with them?
I did talk to them about the Parkway, and they said that they plan on redoing that Parkway area and some of the street that's out there. They said this summer. I don't know if this coronavirus is going to put a hindrance on that, but I know that they do plan on replacing that part of it.
You know, and I think that's odd. Maybe even a phone call to say, hey, if you guys are doing this, who's doing it? What are we doing? Is there a way? Can we get a quote on them teaming up that maybe might save us some money if they're planning on doing it anyway? I'm just trying to look at any aspect.
I'll actually do that, Tim. I'll do it tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, but my thought is just any aspect that we can get a break, and to me, if it's something that can be done, obviously we don't have a lot of money, but patches are patches. We get water, we get flooding, we get weather here. It's going to be a short time till there's more holes and other patching needed. So if there is something that is feasible, I mean, I think we got to at least look at it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
The next project was highlighted on the life safety study. It is the wood ceiling in the 5th, 6th grade hall at Giles. This is a relatively inexpensive fix for that life safety issue. It is a fireproof painting, paint that would be applied to the ceiling. And our architect has verified that it would satisfy not only the life safety study and check that off our list, but it also would be effective, which is the big news. The paint and supplies and the labor are noted here. So the entire project looks like it would stay under $3,000, which I was thrilled because in a lot of ways I felt like that was going to be much more of a problem, and I don't think it will be. So
that's good.
Questions?
Yeah, and Alan was going to reach back to me with this specific, a type of paint, the specs on that. But when I talked to the company, that particular paint wouldn't work because the lacquered ceiling was not porous enough. So long story short, it just was a different item we would have to buy, but it was virtually the same price. But so we know exactly what paint, I have all the specs on that. The painters knows what paint, and once that's approved, that can be done shortly, I would imagine.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
The next project is the Lee bathrooms. As you know, we have torn out the old bathrooms after some of the electrical wiring shorted out. So we have really frozen in place this project. As you can see, we need to address the floor. We have had a wonderful, generous donation of the plumbing fixtures. But of course, we would need stalls and ceiling tiles, and new light fixtures and some electrical work. So we are looking at a project that includes lots of different aspects and several different quotes from several different companies. The floor, the lowest quote we got was epoxy transformations. The plumbing installation, which requires a little bit of new piping and things like that to lower the urinals in the boys' room for our youngest learners and our youngest renters. The electrical and the ceiling tiles. So some of the work Patter can speak to would be done in-house, as was the demo, but the total project's rounding out to about $20,000.
Yeah, and just to point out, I didn't do the demo. Lou did that. Thank you, Lou. Yeah, so,
Frank,
yeah,
Yeah.
any questions? On that?
Hey, me too.
I said it, Frank. I said it. Frank was
I heard you,
You
Lou.
too,
carrying
Frank.
up toilets down those stairs.
You guys are good at being destructive, huh?
Very.
Destroy, yeah, they can.
You got this bid out at 56.
So anybody, any question on that?
Seems fair.
Well, I just wanted to say about the Lee bathroom. Considering the question of how questionable that the park gets in there, it's maybe not as urgent now, but eventually you need to do something. And while you just showed a slide that showed a cumulative $20,000, the truth is that that grand total is actually going to be spent pretty slowly, because you could have the $33.75 spent to regrind the floors, and some weeks later you might get in all the plumbing. A couple weeks after that, you may get it all installed, then get all the stalls. So what I mean is it's going to be paced, so it won't look like a huge expenditure at once. So maybe the expenditures being paced will help.
Well, and let me just say, after this presentation and after our special ed presentation, you will hear from Craig on the financial state of the district. And he will explain to you exactly what you're talking about how we can afford things. So let's wait on that. He's going to address that coming up.
One quick comment that I wanted to toss in. A lot of us went to these schools, and if we do have these funds and they are available, look at the pictures. These bathrooms lasted almost 40 years. $20,000 investment is definitely going to get us at least 10 more.
Oh, maybe more.
Exactly. That's my point. These things haven't been touched for so long. If it's feasible, it's a very worthwhile, long-lasting project.
I just want to jump on all the free stuff. I would hate to miss out on that opportunity, because a toilet, a valve itself is a few $100. I mean, and there's a ton of them.
We may never get this again.
We said it was worth about, what was it worth, about 18 grand or something?
I figured 20, but 18 sounds about right. You guys.
Yeah, I forgot what you said.
Look at you. But yeah.
So one of the major things that was highlighted in the life safety study was plumbing. And plumbing at Giles included some pretty significant money that would have to be put into each of the locker rooms, which are currently in the basement. Just to remind you what those look like, I took a few lovely pictures. So the locker rooms, the plumbing itself in there, the repairs would be several $1,000s, and certainly would be putting,
Why?
money after bad location. These are not ADA compliant at all. And that also was noted in the life safety study. And so in order to avoid needing to do that plumbing eventually, we're proposing that we bring the locker rooms, and they're really changing rooms, up to the first floor, making them ADA accessible, and making 2 changing rooms out of our old art room. We have gotten quotes and believe that the total project is around $29,000. That includes $15,000 in lockers. So the rest of the items are really relatively inexpensive. The flooring, the wall being built, we need a fire, it's a fire alarm, strobe, and some electrical done. But the total price, the big piece of that is the lockers themselves. Now, as you can see in the current changing rooms, these are shelves. They are not in any shape to be taken out of there. They're very beat up. I didn't take pictures of the things that are carved into the sides of them. Plus, getting them out of the basement, I think, would destroy them as well. So we need another alternative. Now, we could try to find some shelving, or we could do it right, and we could get 30 athletic lockers for each side of the locker room changing area. The reason why we recommend these lockers is they are 24 inches wide. They would allow a student at Giles, if we were back to normal and having backpacks, they could put their backpack in here. They could hang their clothes. They could put their personal items up here, and they don't have doors. And that's a very important point. We don't want doors on the lockers. It's easier to keep clean. It's less likely that people could leave things in there, and less likely that they would hide things in there. So we would recommend these sort of open concept athletic lockers is what they're called. We would, talk about what color. This is just the website's picture just to show you what they look like. But it would allow us to, hang a backpack on the back hooks. 30 of them on each side would accommodate the changing of students each block of the day, and certainly would, allow for enough kids, even for after school sports changing and things like that. So there's several different models that we looked at, but this is kind of the one that everybody was liking. And of course, I'd be willing to look at others.
So in the quote for the 15 for those, we're talking 60 of those units for 15 grand?
Right, yeah, they're quite a bit of money, and that would require us to assemble them. That's not installation. So.
I do have one other question on the topic. If this is done and moves forward, the previous changing rooms, locker rooms, whatever you want to call them, are obviously a hot spot for some undesirable activity.
Right.
Are we stuck to keeping those open, or do we have a way, if we changed, to block that off so students did not have access during the school day?
We'd have to talk to our fire marshal regarding blocking off that stairwell, but those doors would be locked, and so no one would get in the actual locker room. Whether or not we could block that lower level, we would have to ask the fire marshal.
Oh, sure. I'm just talking mainly, more, a locked door that, during the day there's not students hiding out down there.
Totally locked doors. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Agreed. Okay. The next project also involves donated items. We have donated counters and cabinets, really nice Korean, I believe, countertops. The scope of the project is to demo the current Lee Faculty Lounge that is decades old incoming, redoing the flooring, painting the room. We would need tiling, we would need paint, we would need a sink cabinet, and obviously installing these things. the current cabinets are broken. This is a broken drawer. That it's hard to see that, but it's a broken drawer. And it's just not adequate for how the room is used. Much of it is damaged and very, very old. So the flooring is carpet, which we would obviously not want for a place that people eat in every day.
And we tested underneath that.
Yeah,
Like the main office, we believe that we would be keeping the tile underneath because of possible asbestos.
I'm just bringing it out there, the cabinet though.
It's the same as the main office. We would keep it in place and we would tile over.
Is it carpeted underneath those cabinets?
no, I don't believe so.
know.
So that's my fear is that once you rip those cabinets up, it's going to be a.
Yeah, it would potentially be the same issue we had in whatever that room, the
office.
old rec room, if you recall, before we changed it. Actually, room 119, the sensory room and the room beside it. When we ripped out those cabinets that were in the old home ec, the contractor came across loose tile, and then we had to come in and take care of that. But luckily, it wasn't. It was contained because it was only a small area. But it's the very same as the main office. We just would have to be careful. And, under the carpet, most likely would be fine. The glue is fine. I did have the glue tested, so the carpet glue is okay. But like I said, Lou, depending if there's a lot of loose tiles on the floor, which you don't know until you pull up the carpet, you could have other problems.
What did that cost to have done in that home ec room? Yes. Like, what was an estimate of what did it cost to
What was
contain
the
it
abatement in the home ec room?
in the home ec room?
I don't remember. I can look it up.
I guess.
It was thousands.
Thousands.
Just for a small area. Luckily, it wasn't a big enough amount, but we had to get a permit from Cook County and whatever. Just a headache.
Yes.
But in terms of this one, if we're careful taking it off, because it's virtually a can of worms then, because you take it off. Now the least you would have to do is replace the crappy carpet with new carpet then if you were finding problems. But if you take it off and stuff starts lifting, luckily we didn't have an issue in the main offices. We were very careful. But with this one, we're going to add underlayment because we found other issues with the main office and stuff where, it's just such an older floor. It's very hard to get a level. So we're going to, I got pricing. The pricing on there is just for the flooring, basically. The painting is very inexpensive. The ceiling's fine, obviously. The cabinetry we'll have to figure out what we're using. But just for the floors, about $5,000 to do full underlayment and tile. Very regular vinyl tile. But again, we'd have to be very cautious because if that goes wrong badly, you're up at $20,000 there. I'm not even exaggerating. For abatement, I'm not gonna not do it right. You know what I mean? If we go in there, we got to do it correctly.
Yeah. All right.
Can you go back to the first slide really quick just to see the total again, the totals? So 4,900. We have all the cabinet. Okay.
We have all
All
the
right.
cabinets.
Yeah, it's not expensive.
I saw them.
If it goes right. If it goes well, it's inexpensive.
Right. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention,
decide.
let's not forget that if we proceed with that the person who donated is willing to send a crew to help mount that which they donated.
Oh, that's right.
Well, is
Very-
Michelle
very
still
nice
on here?
of them.
Because I noticed because we moved it so many times, some of that is quite not damaged, but it's just quite loose. It's kind
Yeah,
of IKEA stuff. Like you can't rethread, whatever it's not MDF, whatever it's called, chipboard. You know what I mean? Once you lose the door, you can't put that door back on.
yeah, I did notice too, some of it was.
And not taking away from the donation, I appreciate it. It's generous and it's good. It's good stuff, but I don't know if we're going to go to the bother of going in there you know, if it wouldn't be worth, you know, putting in some newer, you know, cabinetry. Again, obviously at a cost, but.
Yeah.
Really, to be honest with you, I haven't looked at that stuff. That was
Oh, yeah,
I
sorry.
apologize. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry,
May
yeah.
not end up using all of it, so.
I just haven't gone down there to look at it. I know you've mentioned it to me, and I haven't
Oh,
gone.
no, that's fine. Yeah, I think you said it there, Stephanie. We wouldn't actually be using a lot of it because there's limited space for it anyway.
So,
Area where the sink is, and why we added that area is, I mean, most likely that's not the same size. Maybe it is. I don't even know if there was a sink area, but you know, a sink cabinet is set up especially for a sink. So obviously we'd still have to purchase that. When you look at that little alley that Stephanie showed, we'd still have to purchase something there.
Yeah, a drop-in cabinet. Yeah.
okay. The next one really is, this came up, we knew this was failing toward the end of the school year here. But when I was in at Giles a couple weeks ago, this really horrible alert beeping was going off, and I called Patter and I said, "What is going on in the main office?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's the PA system." And so it's actually, he has to reset it, and then it was going off again the other day. So this is actually a failing system that is incredibly important for safety and security. We need to be able to intercom into the classrooms, and they need to have an emergency button to alert the office. So we thought perhaps that this could be tucked into the COPS grant. We do have a little bit of money that we are dedicating to spend in the COPS grant to finish it off. We have another whole year on that grant, but we could finish it off and get our money if we were to put this project toward that. So that would be something I'd be interested in. And we didn't get 3 quotes because it is proprietary. We need to go with the company that does this. So.
How is this related to the Giles phone system, new phone system?
Yeah.
Separate, right? Separate systems?
Yeah, it's totally separate. It's an intercom system that's been there forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got these lovely new phones for the voice over IP, and we still have the 1974 phone that works the PA system. So.
Yeah, we did that with Michelle's school. We had to do that as well. And it also ties into the clocks, but you know, the clocks are important and teachers need them, but they're not part of the safety part, but they're obviously, you know, you want your clocks working in the school.
Right. So we began, one of our volunteer projects this year was the Lee Hall painting in the kindergarten hallway. And if we want to continue with that work and finish off painting the halls on the first floor, we have an opportunity to do so while the children are not in and we're not having summer school there. We got a quote just to see how much that would cost, and materials and labor together for all of the rest of the first floor hallways would be $4,200. So we would bring this forward to you. And
is this the same length of the work that Frank had put together? The same?
Sorry, can I just clarify? This is all the rest of the hallways at Lee. So this is continuing that first hall and the second to third floor and the fourth area and that area. It's the whole
Okay, good to know, because I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
And for the labor is $2,100, and then we had estimated the paint $2,100. So even if we do a volunteer project on this, then we're looking at $2,100 in paint still.
Yeah, that was an error on my part. I think I had not split it up in 3. But yeah, you corrected that. Yeah.
So finish off Lee School.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to mobilize people again with any frequency to do multiple hallways.
Oh my God.
So-
Not-
They did a great job of that. But
Well,
no.
you gotta have 6 feet distance anyways when you're painting walls. You don't want to be on top of people. So
Yeah.
we'll supply masks if we can find them. I'm just kidding. All right, let's go.
All right, just some lovely pictures of the Lee hallway and why we need to paint these hallways. This is one of our hallways. Ew. Thank you, Michelle, for providing those lovely pictures.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No problem.
And just to go slightly off topic, you know, we should have adequate time with the new cleaning company to do a lot of wall washing, which is something one should do more often. We haven't washed the walls in years. So,
Yeah.
and obviously that's going to be painted, but a lot of these walls for schools need to be washed. And depending how the new school year starts, you know, if we have the new company just washing walls for a week or two, it'll be time well spent.
Right. Well, and even if that wall was perfectly washed, it's still institutional pink. So
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah.
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 maybe,
Yeah.
you know, it's time to update.
Yeah.
Our next project we'd like the board to consider is also part of that life safety study. It was mentioned by Alan in his summary of his work so far, and it is the backflow valves at Giles and possible drains that would need to be put in for these backflow valves. That's why this big disparate amount in the quote. This would be these valves, installation, and possibly drains. These are backflow valves that don't exist right now, so it's not a repair. But Alan has noted that this is an incredibly important item for our school. And for someone, you know, whose basement just flooded, you know, a little bit, but still, I wish I had a backflow valve the other day. So anyway, we don't need any flooding at Giles School.
Yeah. and
That's a
just to-
backflow for the water system.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just to touch on it real quickly, I talked to one of the people who quoted me on that, and there's an issue there with the drainage. There's no drain there. It should be drained there anyway because it's where the supply comes in. But there is a way we could tie into, you know, correctly tie into another drain in a different room close by because it's all mechanical and electrical rooms. So that cost should still close to the 2,400, you know, for that.
How close is the nearest drain, Patter?
It's about 16 feet, I told him. So what you could do, he's on about a funnel type system where you just end up rerouting it if you do lose the piping, which is, I said, if that's correct, if that's a kosher, that's fine then, which it is. So there's a range of 2 companies quoted there. You know, if you say go ahead and do it, again, there's Alan, the architect, came with a huge number. He said something about 20 grand. I'm like, that's not right. So I'm delighted it's this lower number. And again, I get a third quote, but it'll probably be around somewhere between those 2. But luckily, that issue with the drainage is not as drastic as I thought it might be. Because if you have to add a drain, as you guys would imagine, on a concrete floor and there's no drain around, it's a way more money than the lower number.
Hey, we couldn't run the 3/4 inch copper on the wall and just
Yeah.
dump it within 5 feet of that drain. I mean, that probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I was going to bring it all the way to the drain. So yeah. Anyway,
Look at you.
Ms. Palmer, can I ask you a question at this point?
Yes, sir.
How many more projects are you going to present here?
This one more. This is it. Last one. Yep. This one was mentioned by Patter at last meeting, so we are bringing
Yes.
it forward. The life safety study noted the HVAC controls at Giles need to be updated and renewed. This would save money, obviously, on utility costs as well. So kind of a nice bonus.
yeah.
Anything there, Mr. Hurley?
That's got to get done. You guys, this controls will save us so much money over a long period of time and make their job so much easier. They're so outdated.
We
And
are, We are spending money each year on repairs to our current system, the tune of $8,000 to $13,000, depending on the repair and depending on the year. So this system is costing us money.
Right. How much?
It's
Well, yeah, if you'll bear with me, I just have a few, because I know we want to get through this, but I just made a few notes here. It's a half a paragraph. But, all right, first of all, it's very hard to quantify the major improvement costs on the proprietary trained BAS system, right? So it's hard to say, Sam, it's going to cost 17,000 to get Giles or Lee running correctly because I have to do the BAS side first. That doesn't, I could spend all this money on BAS and nothing's going to be any better. 213 at Lee is still going to be opening and closing whatever it wants to do with the valve because it's just not getting the connection on the mechanical side. I had 4 companies come out already. I had them come out to do the chiller. I'm going to fix the chiller, but I had them quote the chiller. But I said, listen, there's potentially an awful lot more work here. I need quotes. I told them I had 4 or 5 companies come out. AMS, who I think Tinarelli used to work for, I used them before. They're quite good. They did a good job. Excel, who used to be Westside, who works at, Pat Rossi uses them. They're very responsive. Proficient is a farmer trained employee who's on his own and he's a tech. So he's on the IT side. And Ardmore Plumbing, who came out, not plumbing, HVAC, they're local guys. They did some of the condenser fans for me recently. And I talked to Train again. I've gotten quotes for Train just to be in the building basically is 8 to 10 grand a year. And they would service the BAS system and correct the points, but that doesn't get you to the mechanical side. So you got to do in tandem. And that's why it's, I could say a number 25. If I spend 10 grand on each, it's a big improvement. If I spend 20 grand in each building, nearly everything will be working. If I spend 30, I would argue everything will be as good as it can be. And then you have the problem of, well, everything's working except the chiller took a crap. So now nothing's working. It doesn't matter what you put into it. So I just want to get through all that. The proposals, they're going to be itemized. They're going to break down everything. Fan 1 at Lee, okay, that does the library and, whatever area it does. So they'll break it down individually. I'll present it back to you guys. Like, okay, we're not doing that. Nobody's ever uncomfortable there. We don't have to do it. So I'll break it down so we can do as little or as much as we need, as deemed needed. That's up to you guys to say what's needed. As I are more sort of principals, if they're getting teachers that are hot or complaining about comfort, that, we got to take care of it. As I referenced, since I started working, Pasquale and Mike can attest to this, the return on the investment is going to be, substantial. It's going to be very good, but it's going to be gradual over several years. That's exactly what Lou said at the start. It's just you won't get the money back next year. If I put 400,000 into it, it'll take 10 years to get it back. And then you will be saving 50 grand every year after that. The problem is Train. Train is great equipment, but they're proprietary. So I did it with one of the fans at Giles. I went away from that unit somewhat. They kind of were able to tie in, they synchronized a different system with Train, which you can do, but it's okay on a small unit, but I can't do it with the system. So like BackNet, for example, is just another program I worked with before. Some of you guys might be familiar with it. It's just basically a controller that works with different units. Anybody can go in and tell it what to do. So that's something we might try and aim towards to get away from Train, who are, again, good equipment, but it's outdated now. I got to buy the newer version of Train, which isn't the same, which they got to modify as well, which is another expense. So, and the different communication. So I just wanted to go through that. There's no way. I need a very good detailed, like you said, Sam, due diligence on this. Here's what we can do. Here's what I think we need to fix. Some of these rooms we're up there every day. It's a waste of your money paying us to go into rooms every day to reset an actuator that won't acknowledge the computer. Stuff like that. And for the most part, 90% of the equipment, as old as our equipment is, it actually is, it works well. We do have to manually do too much overrides But again, it gets done, and it's unnoticed. I think both principals would argue 90% of the teachers are comfortable 90% of the time. I mean, you know, and I'd like to get it to 100, and we could do that, but I want to itemize these costs, send them back to you. That's not something we need to do tomorrow. But these companies are coming out, they're coming out again in the next 2 weeks. I'll have 4 or 5 of them. And in the next month or so, I'll have a varied range of repairs and, you know, maintenance scheduling too. You know, PM systems, everything. And we can pick and choose. Okay, Patter, you've got a new foreman. You continue to do the PMs. That makes sense. Or, you know what, this company is doing great. We might offer them PMs in years to come. Or let's change the whole thing. I have to refer to ComEd's analysis too. I've done that before, and because we are pretty efficient, as bad as some of the stuff works, I do a good job using the least amount of electricity as possible. So that kind of takes away from, you know, I'm kind of penalized in the sense they won't throw a lot of money at me because I don't have a huge margin there. But that's why it is going to be over a substantial period of time to get the feed, to get the return on investment, because we don't run 24/7 all year long, and we do a good job of shutting down the system when we can. But I have no problem getting as much.
Thank you. Thanks.
If you want even more money, okay.
Are there any other questions?
Just one last thing to wrap it up on my end here. Are you, the expectation from your office, Stephanie, to present were they put in orders 1 through 9 for any specific reason tonight?
Yes, they were put in order what we believe are the highest priority to the, you know, that needs to be repaired, and that is a timing issue. They all are important, and they all connect in one way or another to the life safety study.
Okay, and that was going to be my next piece, right? When this is presented to the board for approval, outside of what the numbers are and what the cost is in the numbers, you know, I think it's fair that the board knows that these are on the life safety, and the ones that are higher priority than others, those should maybe be addressed first. That would be my opinion. I'm one board member, but if we're going to start approving projects over the summer in the condition that the economy is in, we gotta make smart decisions. We'll tread lightly, order of importance to safety of the students, the staff, and in accordance with the life safety. That's just how I want to leave it at this point. If anybody else has a comment, or we'll move on.
Just have a quick question. Do we have an idea how much it would cost to complete every item on the life safety study?
Over $1 million, I believe, is what, but that's a very general number. That's from Alan, and that's over 10 years. So that's a very broad estimate.
And I remember Alan saying that something to the effect of, that's a generous amount based on hiring out at market rate for everything. Whereas we know a number of the things can be done internally if given the right staff. Or if Patter were to have maintenance foreman that could really contribute. Just staff that could knock out a lot of these things one by one. Some of these things we have to contract out, but some of it we'll be able to do internally. But just speaking to that point, Alan was making it, giving a figure as if everything was quoted out.
Sure.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see a full list and what we project to get them done, you know, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. So it just, we have goals and we strive to achieve them. We can start checking them off the list. But I was just curious to see what the whole package would cost. But that's it.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to, I would like to see Craig Schilling's presentation first to see where we're at financially prior to saying go with certain projects. But thank you.
That's why we're going to do that. Fabulous.
Special Ed Transportation, Ms. Palmer, Ms. Hanson.
Thanks, Patter, for all that you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I probably need it. I'll just leave, I guess.
Thank you, Patter.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
If you'd like to jump off, you are more than welcome.
I
Thank
will, yeah. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You
night.
too.
All right. Whoops. I think I need to go back and unmute her. Can you unmute yourself? No, probably
I
not.
did. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yay. All right. We will
All right,
start
great.
that.
I can go ahead and get started. I think Stephanie's got my presentation there. Trying to think of a clever transition from building and grounds to special ed updates. So I guess we're going to try to avoid future potholes
Yes.
by sharing this information with you tonight. There were a couple of key areas that Stephanie wanted me to touch on, and then most importantly at the end, I wanted to fill you in on the special education transportation billing request that was made recently back in April, and then again updated in May. So I wanted to be able to share some hard numbers with you so that you could make an informed decision on how the board would like to act on the special education transportation billing. Starting tonight's presentation regarding distance learning and special education, I'm really proud of how tirelessly our special education department has worked and how creative they have been, how willing they have been to think outside of the box in terms of how we meet the needs of our students with special needs during this time of remote learning. 6 weeks into remote learning, I did send home a parent survey via email and was pleased to get 15% response rate back from our parents, which compared to other surveys that we send out district-wide is, believe it or not, a really good rate. Overall, the survey results were extremely positive, but I wanted to highlight two areas in particular that I think are a really good reflection for the board of how distance learning is going with our special population. One question parents were asked was, how has your child responded to learning at home? And 63.2% of our parents said their child's doing well, they just need a little bit of help. And I think, you know, hey, that's a huge celebration. Many of our typically functioning students have not been doing well or needed a lot of extra help. So the fact that our special population is doing that well is cause for celebration. Another response that I thought was really a great reflection and wanted to share with you, just to brag about the department a little bit and our staff. Parents were asked, how do you feel about the amount of support your child has received from his or her case manager or special education teacher while distance learning? 94.7% of our parents said that they have received enough support from their child's case manager while distance learning. 0 parents responded that they have not received enough support. And 5%, one parent said they've received far too many emails or phone calls from their child's case manager. So our teachers have been extremely plugged in and engaged with our students during this time. So I'm really proud of that and excited to be able to report that on behalf of them. So back on March 12th, e-learning started. Thankfully, the board, you know, with your support, we had that e-learning plan in place. But since then, these last 44 days, we've really hit the ground running. And here's a highlight of some of our numbers. We have had 20 EC to kindergarten transition IEP meetings. We have had 15 4th grade to 5th grade transition IEP meetings. We've had 3 reevaluation meetings to consider whether or not a student is eligible for special education. And in addition to that, we've had 25 more IEP meetings. We've continued on with our team meetings. As the director, I have been meeting with each of our staff individually, each case manager and therapist that provides services, checking in on every student on their caseload, getting input on, you know, parent responses. How are they struggling? What supports do they need? Are there things that we can get shipped to their house? Are there supports or tools that are needed. And in fact, Liliana DiGiulio, shout out to her, she hand delivered packages to students' homes with special materials like lined paper or tools that they needed for writing or even, special seating. Third trimester IEP goal progress reports will all be sent home on June 4th. Our case managers are going to be updating IEP goals on every student in all areas, even if they're relying on reports from parents. That will be documented, and we will have that as a baseline measure come fall. We've also developed remote learning plans. We're at 113 right now. We've got a few more to go to wrap these up, but our remote learning plans are being developed collaboratively with parents, and they're designed to be proactive in the event that school doesn't open in the fall. So we can, from day one, know exactly what our students need in order to be successful. So we're not just following the IEP, but what does that IEP look like in a remote learning situation? So we will have that specifically spelled out with input from our parents as well. This last number here, the irony of it all is that I did go back and count the number of meetings that we weren't able to hold due to the COVID-19 school closure, and guess what? We had 19 meetings that weren't able to be held because of the COVID-19 closure. So we do unfortunately have a handful of initial evaluations that are out there and meetings that require face-to-face student contact. And so we have had to postpone those until the fall, but we are monitoring, we will be monitoring those students closely and have been in communication with each of those families, both by phone as well as by email, to keep everybody in the loop. Next is ESY. We kind of got thrown a curveball with ESY. We had planned to do that obviously in person. I sent out another separate parent survey regarding ESY and gave parents a couple of options, and recognizing that many parents are fatigued right now, right? They're doing a lot of work at home, and it's tough. So on the survey, we gave them two options for service delivery as well as the option to decline. We did have a handful of parents decline. However, we are going to be able to offer ESY in a remote learning format, and positions were posted internally today. I'm not anticipating any challenges at this point. We're just going to keep on doing what we've been doing up to this point. We've got a system down. We've got the distance learning plans in place, and things are going really well. So we're just going to keep providing that instruction and that level of support for our students. With the school closure and ESY being offered remotely, it does impact the budget somewhat, but in a positive way. This will result in us not needing to hire 5 classroom paraprofessionals. So ESY will cost us as a district a little bit less than it would have had we been providing supports in person. Lastly, an update on special transportation, and this is the item that will need input on the board for tonight. Dave Ambrecht, Regional Director of Operations for Cook, Illinois, contacted me along with all of the other districts that he provides special transportation to, and initially requested a special arrangement to reduce our rate for transportation billing for the remainder of the school year. The initial request was for 80% of the total cost billed, so that they would be able to keep their staff on hand and not have to let staff go and eliminate those positions, which could then result in them not being able to provide our students with transportation come the fall. After the CARES Act was passed in April, they came back with a revised request, and that offer was for us to pay 37% of the total anticipated transportation cost, again, for them to be able to support their workers and remain in business. piece of information that you should know is that the state of Illinois does receive tuition reimbursement at a rate of 83% from the state of Illinois. That changes from year to year. For FY19, we were reimbursed at a rate of 86%. This year it's 83%. It typically hovers anywhere in that 75 to 85% range. As a comparison, I reached out to other districts in the area to see how they were handling this request. A source of mine at LASIK does report that they are likely to vote yes at their June board meeting to allow Cook Illinois Transportation Company to bill them for 37% of the remaining costs for April, May, and June of this school year. I've provided a link to the transportation costs just so you can take a look at that as a comparison. I've got 1920 available, and that's the one I'm working off of right now. I've also got school year 18-19 there for you to see. One of the great things about transportation costs from last year to this year is that we have reduced our cost overall by $143,452. We are on track to reduce those costs even if we were billed out completely for April, May, and June. And that's mostly due to the elimination of special transportation entitlement for our EC students. In the past, we automatically provided special transportation for any student who was in that program. And when I came on board, we decided to look at that really from a related services eligibility standpoint and found that the vast majority of our students truly didn't qualify for that service, but we were offering it. So we over the course of this past year have been able to eliminate it, and that there is the savings. Keep in mind, we are reimbursed on that amount for that 83 at that rate of 83%. So for 1920, if you look at April, May, and June, if we were just to average out what that amount would be, an estimated additional cost for transportation in the pink there. The estimated additional cost for April would be $25,859.54. Same for May. June would be a little less, for a total of $81,609.68. If we would have stayed in school and our students would have been transported, that's likely close to what our bill would have been. Okay. They are now requesting that they be allowed to bill us 37% of that cost. Illinois Chicago is the large umbrella that Rich Lee Transportation falls under. So that's why you'll see Rich Lee here on that chart, but they are one and the same. So 37% of that 81,609, which is the amount listed below. So 1626.56 for April, 1626.56 for May, and approximately $193.89 for June.
Do we have a contract with them such as like the contract we have with our renter, that if the services or facilities cannot be used due to act of God, we don't have to pay?
Not due to act of God, no.
Because I mean, here I am a special ed person. I will say that. But special education transportation is very expensive, and our school is not going to be reimbursed on any tax income or property income we lose off of COVID-19. So I just personally can't see extending it through for a service we're not using.
We just need to discuss that at the board level.
Yep.
We wanted to show you what you're voting on. And so these are the totals that you're voting to expend, and how much money we would be reimbursed versus how much money we would lose out on. So it's completely up to the board. We do not pay if we are able to cancel the transportation. Let's say a student is hospitalized and we, don't use that service for a period of time. We do cancel it. We don't pay if that happens, and that is in our contract. We have a 3-year contract with this transportation company, and this current year is year 2. So we have a contract for next year with specified amount of money they would charge for each route. So the contract is in place for next year. If they were to not honor that contract, they would be in breach. And we have consulted the attorneys on that.
Yeah, and Stephanie's exactly right. We are not charged for routes typically, prior to this COVID-19 pandemic. We are not charged for routes that students they're not providing a service for. So in other words, if a student is picked up and we've made a recommendation that they now need transportation to a program outside of our district, they start charging on the first day they provide transportation. If a student is at a private program and being recommended to come back to our school and no longer needs it, on the day that transportation ceases, we are no longer billed for that transportation. So there is no act of God written into the contract, because we've always had the flexibility to kind of come and go. It's more of a pay as you go service. But what happens in times like this where they're not providing any type of transportation for any school districts at this time, they're just trying to stay in business. So this is their attempt to reach out to their current customers and ask for this 37% as a token of support to keep them afloat, knowing that we're going to be reimbursed on that 37% at a rate of 83%. So it's a really very small cost to the district related to what we would have paid had we remained in school.
And just so I can wrap my head, we're looking at, typically in a normal month with full amount of students, we're looking at just shy of $26,000. What's the total number of students that we have using this service for that cost?
Mm-hmm. We have a total of 9 students using that.
To several different facilities.
Correct.
So you can see that on this chart. It probably would be easier if you clicked on it in your own computer, but we have students going to minor school in Arlington Heights, Metro Prep in Arlington Heights, New Horizon Center, which is just on the other side of the Harlem Irving Plaza, and Winston Knowles and Hoffman Estates. So 4 different directions, different needs. One young person needs a wheelchair lift, special type of transportation. And
actually, we have 2 buses that require lifts. Right. And a couple of our different routes also require direct supervision for student safety, and those are truly essential. We have had incidents on the bus in the past where students have been unsafe.
Well, they need it, yes. And
they need constant supervision.
And they need to, yes, be properly strapped in.
For personal care. I mean,
for their personal
basic life functions like breathing.
Right.
Being properly strapped in. I mean, this isn't a babysitter. This is someone who truly needs to, is there for a very specific purpose. So while I understand the cost concern,
we just wanted you to know the numbers. So we can discuss it, and you'll be voting on it later in the meeting.
And this was simply, I am not making a recommendation one way or another to the board. I was simply asked to present the facts to allow for you to make an informed decision, so that I can respond appropriately to Dave Ambrecht, who originally made the request to me.
The other thing you need to know is we are being reimbursed for last year's transportation. Right now, we would not feel this particular payment until next year at this time. It's a year in arrears.
Mm-hmm. And just in comparison, this year we would have spent $257,653. Last year we spent $401,106. So we have really cut those costs significantly, as much as we possibly could.
Right. All right.
Okay, quick question for Sam. Since this is technically pertaining to a contract, could this be brought up and closed?
It can, and you know what? The first question you asked him was a great question, Stephanie. This was discussed at our agenda meeting. Contact was made to council for our district. We have a response from them, and yes, that will be discussed and closed. That's why it was put on as an action item after closed, so we can get more information to you. Yes.
All right. Any further questions for Kim? Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Right.
Dr. Schilling. You still with us, sir?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
We can hear you.
Financial health of the district.
Okay. I fell asleep once, I think.
I have to get a power cord. I'll be right back.
You want me to wait for him to come back?
Yeah, go ahead. You can wait.
You can go. You can go. Start. Go ahead.
All right.
Okay. Well, there were two things that were handouts that were forwarded to you. One was an analysis that I did for capital improvements, and one was a general handout for status of where we are, where we're going, and so forth. So I'm going to start with the capital improvements first. So there was a sheet that showed 1920 and 2021 for site and construction and life safety funds. So just as a quick little lesson here, Fund 20, which is operation and maintenance, is strictly for maintaining, cleaning, and operating the schools. Major capital improvements are taken out of 60 and 90. And 60, site and construction fund, are those capital improvements and or infrastructure items that are not eligible for life safety funding. And those things in 90 are strictly life safety. So we didn't budget anything for life safety this year because we knew we were going to be doing a survey. So what I did for you is I took this year's budget, the starting balances, I showed what had been spent, what's spent in May, and what would be the ending balances for this current school year. So in site and construction fund, we'd have just under 80,000, and in life safety, just about 165,000. So if you take those balances into next year and look at where the projects fall, you'll see that, for example, in Fund 60, we will receive corporate personal property tax, which is the revenue that we've been putting into that fund, of about 143,000 in the COPS grant. You'll see that we have expenses under there are the bathroom, faculty lounge, intercom, and parking lot. Generally, those are not life safety issues. I suppose you could argue a little bit on the bathroom, but technically there are other bathrooms that you could use. But those are the ones that would go under site and construction. I also show about a 10% contingency because that's typical when you do any kind of project for the projects that are listed. So the ending balance at the end of the year would still be about 250,000 if we did all of those projects. Likewise, if you look to the right under life safety, you'll see that I started with, for 2021, about 165,000. Property taxes of 104, life, which is the life safety levy. The maintenance grant of about 50 grand. And then we have expenses for door replacement, which we know we've already bid out. The locker room project, because of HVAC and just the whole piece would qualify. The fireproofing qualifies, obviously. HVAC qualifies, and the black backflow qualifies. So again, a contingency, and at the end of the year, we would have about $151,000 to start the next school year. So we could do all of the projects listed for in this summer and have, you know, between the two funds, about $400,000 available going forward. I think there's a few things to think about, and that is going forward, are we getting, you know, I think that you might be getting better prices now than you might in a year, because if things improve, I would think that there'll be more school districts and people going out to bid to do projects. I'm not sure who's doing what at this point. And because we knock off anything on the life safety, there's no inflation in costs and so forth. And all those things are going to be done, whether it's this year or next summer, most likely anyway. So that's where you stand. And it's up to you whether or not, obviously you want to do the projects, but you can afford doing the projects and you're still in good shape going forward. Any questions just on that slide? Okay, I'll go on to the next one. The next handout I gave you is, I was asked by Stephanie if I could take a shot in the dark at where we might end up and where we would go and what was happening. So what I did is I basically downloaded all the expense data through April and looked at what we spent in April. And then I basically projected it forward for May and June. Then I went back and made some adjustments and assumptions about things we would spend money on and not spend money on. And then I tried to look at, from a revenue perspective, low, medium, and high based on information I provided to you last month, plus other information I've become aware of over the last several months, including my own projections that I've shared with other school business officials and folks. So if I look under 2020, I did make a couple of assumptions that are important. One is that we would include expenditures under the CARE Act. In other words, we would spend the $129,000 before the end of the school year to have those computers on hand. As I've told Stephanie, I think that's important. I know personally 2 districts that are both buying over 4,000 to 5,000 Chromebooks because everybody got caught short. So, you know, you don't want to be the last district to order because who knows what the supply channel will look like at that point. I also included the transportation company payments if you choose to do them. So this reflects them being in there so that will, you don't have to worry if you choose to pay or it's here, and if it's not, then it's just a little bit better. So when I do all that, and it's still, I want to say it's kind of a shot in the dark because we still don't know what the state's going to basically give us in June. Turns out our taxpayers were very good paying their spring bill. So there were really no shortfall that I see at this point. When I was expecting maybe $200,000 or $300,000, it just didn't materialize. So at this juncture, my best guess is that we'll end the year with about a $770,000 balance. And that could be higher or lower, plus or minus. You know, some of that is directly due to things that we did not spend, you know, whether it's utilities or whether like a big amount was in substitutes, we just didn't spend it. So there were items that going forward we'll make adjustments for. So if that all pans out, we would end the year with reserves just over our 33% goal. So we would be at 35%. So I took that information and then I extrapolated it to 2021. And I'm going to tell you right now, I did not go past 2021 because it's just too many things that I don't know and nobody does. But for 2021, I did a low, medium, and a high. So for the medium, which I guess you would call best guess, expected, however you want to label it, what I did is I basically assumed there'd be no new tax revenue. So we would not get the 1.9. That could either be because people don't pay their whole, not everybody pays their whole bill. It could be because, you know, there's a little bit of a freeze, whatever the reason, that we would get exactly what we got this year. I assume we wouldn't get any new state money from the evidence-based funding model. Nobody knows whether the state will come up with at least $150 to $300 million for schools or not. Without that money, there would be no increase in that funding. I included a small reduction in fees, which were reflected in what Stephanie and Michelle presented earlier in the night. I assumed that we would not receive all our categorical payments, and those are things like special ed tuition, transportation, etc. If you go back to the 2008 recession, the first thing the state did when they didn't have enough money is they basically gave us 3 payments instead of 4. And then, you know, 2 or 3 years, a couple years ago, we finally got all of our payments back, only to have this happen again. So everybody's kind of expecting that that may be one place that the state tries to, you know, get a little bit ahead. I included salary increases, 1.9%, which is CPI, which we've talked about for months now. I've included the new cleaning contract and foreman position. I have not included the new food service contract because it's not due until May 28th. So that'll be on your June board meeting to approve. And we just don't know what that will reflect, although we do get some federal reimbursement through the National School Lunch Program on that. And I'm only including in that medium category receiving 50% of the current park district rental fees. So if you want to know what makes up low and high, a couple examples. So let's just take a few of these. So on property taxes, instead of getting what we got this year, the low would be there's a tax freeze. The high would be we get the full 1.9%. So you can see those are the two ranges. The park district, for example, rental fees, the low is we get nothing. And the high is we get the same thing we got this year. And the middle just reflects that, well, maybe we don't meet part of the year, so we don't get all the revenue, kind of like what we did this year. Same thing would be true of categoricals and some of these other things. Basically, you know, the high categorical means we get all 4 payments. You know, maybe we miss one in the middle, and in the low, maybe we only get 2. So what I've tried to do is give a, you know, low, medium, and high through here to give you a little bit of feel about the range could be. And you can see that the range, and this is the problem that every school district right now is having is most of them don't have people who have been around for all of the different recessions and so forth. And everybody's trying to figure out what that's going to be. You know, it could be as much as short 700. It could be as high as will be plus 500 or 600. Or it could be medium, which is about where we said we would be, which is, you know, maybe 100,000 or 200,000 a balanced budget. So best guess right now for you until we have more information, and obviously we're only, you know, 90 days, well, basically 45 days away from the end of the year, so we'll know. where we end up is that we will have a balanced budget next year, regardless, and that our reserves will remain no less than what we have now, doing everything. And remember, this is the operating funds only. This has nothing to do with the capital improvement funds. Those are totally separate items. This doesn't affect that, and that doesn't affect this. So that's the best guess at this point. Going forward, the legislature has been scheduled to meet. I think it's this week for the first time. So nobody knows what they're going to do with regard to budget and funding. So I guess that would be my best guess at information at this point. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this point.
I have one, Dr. Schilling.
Sure.
I'm looking at your slide here. 2019, 2020 in the red up top. You have it red before the green.
Yep.
The 771,566, that number, did I understand it correct? Is that the number in the operating fund taken into consideration if we approve those projects that were presented tonight, if those are approved in the next month before the end of the fiscal year?
Yes, because what I was trying to say at the end is this slide, these two slides have nothing to do with each other. They're totally independent.
Yes, understand. Yes.
Yes, so this slide is what you see is what you get, and the same is true. The only thing that would happen, what happens on the other slide for the capital projects is if you approve all of them, you'll have about 400 grand left. If you don't approve all of them, you'll have more than that left going into 21, 22 for projects. In either case, I've already told Stephanie, the best thing that once you make your decision about what you're going to do this year, what needs to happen next year is the project piece needs to be cited in the fall, not wait so long. And we know we're going to approve the life safety survey then, but that way then they could be bid out in January. We'll know exactly how much money we're going to have for the following year. So you should be able to make all those decisions very early.
So right now, the district is on pace to be at 35.1% in the operating funds reserve at the end of this year.
Best guess, yes.
Gotcha, understand. Thank you, that's all I had.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much, Dr. Schilling.
Thank you, Dr. Schilling.
You're welcome.
I believe that concludes our presentations, Mr. Palazzo.
I believe so, yes. I'm looking at the agenda. Moving on to the action item. Is there any discussion on the action item that's presented right after presentation? And that's going to be in relation to the CDW quote for Chromebook. Any discussion before I ask for a motion? Okay. With that, I need a motion to approve CDW quote for Chromebook purchase pending the approval of the CARES Act grant.
I will make the motion.
I'll second it.
Seconded by who?
Mike. Oh.
Mike. Pasquale and Mike, Sarah. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Biondo,
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lutston,
Abstain.
Mr. Palazzo,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
You're muted.
And I can't seem to unmute.
Yes.
For whatever reason.
Yes.
There we go.
Mr. Mazzano,
Yes.
Mr. Berardi.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Motion does carry. Administrative reports. Superintendent, Ms. Palmer.
Wonderful. Well, at this time, I'd like to give a huge thank you to both of our parent-teacher organizations. During our Teacher Appreciation Week, our parent-teacher organizations delivered gift bags to each of our educators in District 80 to their homes one of which lives in Wisconsin. And I just want you to know they traveled to each and every one of our homes and delivered a wonderful, just a very uplifting gift. It was really, really special, and it meant a lot to all of our teachers. They did a great job. So I do want to make sure we highlight that. Like I said, we are moving forward planning with next school year. We have some end of the year activities starting after Memorial Day for 4 days of sort of our, what would be assemblies and field days and fun things going on for our students. This is a time when students who may have fallen behind in their work can make up those last assignments and finish off the year strong. There are a few students who need to do that. And we are planning with the village and the police departments and the fire department a wonderful District 80 parade. So on Friday, May 29th, we are going to have our teachers and staff in their own cars. We are going to line up at the Salvation Army, and our Lee teachers have planned a fabulous route all over both Lee and Giles old attendance areas, and we will have a fabulous parade with our educators saying goodbye to our students and, you know, have a nice summer. So we are getting everyone involved. We're getting the village to approve this. We've cleared this with, you know, all of the police are going to help us. It's going to be a wonderful community event. And then that afternoon on May 29th, we are filming our socially distanced graduation diploma distribution ceremony. The rest of the usual graduation will be videotaped. So the students who are giving speeches will come in an hour before distance graduation and videotape them at Giles. And then our students have appointment times from 2 to 6 o'clock to get all of them through and hand them their diploma dressed in cap and gown. John Job and my 8th grade team are going to help with that with appropriate PPE to make sure that they have a somewhat in-person graduation experience. So that's happening May 29th as well, and we're super excited about all of that. Mr. Job is putting together the end of the year, the graduation ceremony, and we will be putting that out to the public on June 1st, just like we would have had our graduation that night. Then we are using that week, June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd will be our last 3 remote e-learning planning days. And then June 4th is a Teacher Institute Day. So the students are completely done on May 29th with all obligations. Report cards will be emailed home, the Mastery Connect report card on June 4th. So yeah, it'll be a good end to the school year. And like I said, we are planning 3 different approaches to starting school up. We will be rolling that out June 4th to our parents, and then we will be talking about it again at the June board meeting of the board. But again, these are skeletons because everybody's just waiting on the governor and the Illinois Department of Public Health as far as what actually is going to happen in the fall. So that is what we're going to be doing for the next couple of weeks. Michelle?
So at Lee, we are concluding our ABC countdown this week. One of my favorite days so far has been yesterday was Tiger Day. And I've been fortunate to have many families email me pictures of their child with their cute little tigers that they created. So that is going to be used on a Welcome Back to School bulletin board at Lee next year. So we're really excited about that. Today was Uniform Day, which I had a lot of pictures of children in Bears outfits. Not so much Sox and Cubs, which is interesting, but a lot more Bears. the Chicago Bears. And e-learning comes to an end for us on the 22nd. As Ms. Palmer mentioned, we have our enrichment days next week as well. We have a pod day on the 26th, which is a special Lee day. The 27th is a very special day for our Lee families, and it's a secret, so I can't tell you about it, but I can guarantee you that you will all know exactly what it is on the morning of the 27th. And it will be at your homes that you will find what it is. So I will leave the rest as a surprise. On the 28th is our field day. We're doing a virtual field day that would have been our PTA sponsored field day around there. So we wanted to continue that tradition. And then of course on the parade on the 29th, which we're excited about. I think Stephanie's covered pretty much everything else. We're talking about going on and planning for next year and excited about the opportunity of the one-to-one Chromebooks. We've been making a list at Lee because, you know, as many of you have mentioned, this has been difficult for a lot of our families, for everyone. And we've been making a list of our silver lining ideas and things that they're just the silver lining in the situation, and the Chromebooks is one of our big silver linings. So we thank you for that, because I think that will help our students and be able to engage in them more in the fall and into next year. So that's it. Thank you
I
very
do
much.
have a question.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know, I don't have anybody at Lee anymore. Is there anything planned or anything happening with a kindergarten celebration?
Sure. Oh, yes. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, the kindergarten teachers are going, they've created a video, like a virtual graduation video, which will be sent out on June 2nd. And the families have been contributing to that. And then the kindergarten teachers are actually going to all of the homes of the kindergarten families on June 2nd, visiting them, socially distancing, of course, handing out their diplomas, congratulating them, and giving them the video and moving them forward to the next year. We also at Lee, if you've driven past Lee, you may have noticed it in the parking lot area. We have posted posters for saying goodbye to our 4th graders who will be leaving us at Lee and moving to Giles. I've received many pictures of children standing in front of those big posters, which is very, very heartwarming for me. It's been really sweet to see that, because they did a proper leaving.
One more question, if you don't slap me for this, but it was asked.
No, go ahead.
PBIS points. What happens with PBIS points?
Unfortunately, PBIS points are lost, and we will need to continue to give them out in the fall. My staff gave over 500,000 PBIS points this year. We will certainly, renew our vigor in giving out points in the fall.
Good question.
We also had a question about PTO and PTA, and we are having a reorganization of PTO and PTA. We are merging them starting this week, but really in earnest in the fall. So both of those organizations are going to be working together to really support both schools going forward.
Okay. Moving on to board committees. Board policy and development. There's nothing to report. Building and grounds.
Okay, I have some things to mention that Patter had been filling me in on. This is like I normally do, it's going to jump around a lot. Johansson, the door company we approved, has been working steadily already. There's some extra door lock work that may be happening within what they're already doing. That's good. There was an alarm that caused the police to be called a few weeks ago. And it was because of the cleaning crew, unfortunately. Tyco has now corrected the order call, so Patter will get the call first. And this will avoid false alarm calls to the police. And it's going to be made easier on Patter because the cameras now can go right to his phone and make things easier for him to see exactly what's happened. Speaking of Tyco, they repaired a faulty alarm at Giles. and they checked other systems, and our fire and burglar systems are at both schools have been reviewed and are working correctly. Janitorial. GSF is now down to 3 people when we knew this from the meeting. Giles is completely locked down. That meaning that it's completely cleaned. The floors are all done. There may be 8 teachers to move, but it's simple, just moving stuff. So it's limited access until school starts, but it's because it's locked down and it's prepped to go. There's nothing happening in it during the summer. Mechanical. As Patrick was explaining, some companies have been on site to look at chiller repair and other HVAC, and he did speak on that a lot. It looks like he's going to get more fine-tuned quotes and more particulars on if we only did this, we only did this particular thing. So he's got some work ahead of him on that, but a lot like he was stressing, it will save money down the line. But things are working okay. It's just that long-term, there are improvements to be made. Now, the last few days, as many of us experienced, Norwich, anywhere, a lot of water seepage. He explained that some rooms at Lee that have not taken in water, took in some water. Some of the rooms that had been repaired took a little bit of water. So there's no, I don't know what to say now. There's no real cause for alarm because homes that never took water in this last week. What will be happening is a monitoring of if it progresses, if it persists in these rooms. But the last 4 or 5 days have been pretty crazy. And because of that, we're going to see seepage in rooms that we probably didn't before. But it's going to be kept an eye on. We already addressed the HVAC. A bleacher inspection was done recently, passed. Lawn care. The new landscaping company has been doing well. People have noticed, board members have noticed, it's been looking good. The courtyard had some more grass improvements done, and that's coming in nicely.
But please let's note that Tiger Lake did not return even after 7 inches of rain over the past week.
Tell your friend.
Our courtyard at Lee did not flood at all. Very exciting.
Booyah. Nice. Another, water related, but not the same type of water, is at Giles, where the concession room was being made. There was a water fountain that had to get remounted to a newer one, and it involved some brickwork. It was kind of unsightly for a while, but Patter has finished that. That's all intact now. The custodian working with Patter is going to be going to afternoons for 2 weeks. This will help with the last 2 weeks of GSF services and to keep an eye on them. And it may be a trial run for future scheduling to see if it helps the Building and Grounds Department in general. The Ridgewood Building and Grounds Director and our own Building and Grounds Director have been communicating even more. And with this regular discussions, there's new talk of sharing more equipment and sharing some resources. And I'm very glad to hear that because they're a wealth of resources and information, and we could always use the help. And someday there's going to be something District 80 has that they need, and this mutual cooperation is going to work out really good. And that's all I have for Building Grounds.
Thank you, Frank. Communications.
Excuse me, Sam, I have something for Frank and
Sure,
Lou.
go ahead, Paul.
By any chance, what rooms took in water and what buildings were they again?
Lee?
It was Lee. It was Lee, and it was the rooms. Okay, the problem areas are 150, 116, 114, 112 on the east wall, and 104 and 106 on the south wall, which were the two that water hasn't been seen and who knows when.
Okay, because I was going to ask if any of these were rooms that prior Buildings and Grounds Committee, like Mike and I know that in our tenure on that committee, there were some repairs that we had done at Lee and at Giles. So if there were any of those that ended up taking in water, I think those should still be under some warranty through those companies. So if we could just double check if any of those.
The 104 and the 106 were new rooms.
They were new? Okay.
The other rooms that were in the back were the rooms that we did the repair on last summer.
Okay.
You guys,
And up until this point, we
Yeah.
hadn't brought in any new water. This was just a very unusual rain and a very large amount of rain.
Yeah,
And nothing at Giles, Frank?
I did not hear anything at Giles.
Good,
But then
good.
I haven't heard, even back last summer when we were starting to address these things or by volunteer, even then I didn't hear anything about Giles. So I don't think it's really much of an issue there. So.
You know, having 100-year rain every year, you're gonna see this. Like, I worked 26 hours straight, Sunday to Monday to today because of the rain. You can't.
I just wanted to make sure that if any of the rooms that did take on water were rooms that previously had work done on them, either from when Mike and I were both on that committee. So, and those were recent. So they were between 2013 to what, Mike, 2016, 17 was probably the last time?
It could be something like that. Yeah.
So, okay, just wanted to make sure. That's all.
I do have a question for maybe Lou or whatever. In Lee, on the first floor there, by the lower grades, the bathrooms there, the sinks are not working right? From my understanding, is that correct, Paul? Maybe you would know.
In the kindergarten wing? Are you
Yeah.
speaking of the kindergarten bathrooms? I'm not aware of that. I'm sorry.
I thought they fixed them.
I don't know if they're not.
Are you
working.
talking about from the life safety, from the time we did the life safety?
I know that Rock's a plumbing service that Pat has been working very closely with in the last 2.5 months now.
Yes.
They've been systematically addressing a lot of different issues.
Most of those are done, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been, all right, because I know that there was a problem
With the
with
garbage
that.
bag, yeah.
So then it might be taken care of then. Just maybe a double check on that.
Sure.
On that.
So the garbage bag issue is with the third grade bathrooms, but I can check.
Is it the third grade bathrooms that has the problems?
That had the garbage bags covering them, that, yes.
That following week, he sent us an email telling us that they had taken care of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will check them. I mean, we can check.
Yeah. With the COVID-19, everybody's got to wash their hands. So, I mean, if we don't have sinks that are not working.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it by now it's been addressed because Pat has been regularly reporting more and more plumbing issues that he's just tallied up and finally had done.
Yeah, I heard good things about that, Rocks.
Mm.
I mean, some good things about them.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna step out. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Oh, I got one question for you before you leave.
Oh, sir. Sure. Let's hear it.
Okay, you had in your report MTSS or whatever that is?
Yeah, MTSS is an acronym for multi-tiered systems of supports. It's the problem-solving process. It's a system or a framework for addressing academic as well as social, emotional, and behavioral concerns. So it's the step of the process of problem solving before a student gets to special education, or problem solving in order to put a plan in place to prevent a student from moving into special education.
And that's done by the special ed?
It's done by it's a regular education initiative, but I am involved because I do still play an important role in determining that, or in monitoring the fidelity of that system. Because if that system isn't implemented with fidelity, then we run into trouble when we get to the special education question, if that hasn't been done correctly.
Okay, all right.
That's my rule.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Communications.
Nothing to report out, Sam.
Finance.
Finance, we had a meeting scheduled tonight. Unfortunately, we had to cancel. My plan is to forward the 2 slides in which Craig went over with his presentation today to the committee. I was told that the plan is to bring a tentative budget forward in June to the whole board. So we have scheduled a finance meeting on June 9th at 7:30. It'll be a virtual meeting. So I should have more to report at our next meeting.
Thank you. Negotiations. Negotiation committee met on April the 28th. Subsequently, there was a meeting with the association and some of its members 2 days later on April the 30th. There's nothing to report. We're looking forward to meeting with them again in the future. Norwich Park.
We had a meeting on May 14th at 7 p.m. via Google, and we need to, because it's regarding the lease, we'll be discussing that during closed session.
Okay, IASB, Mike?
If you've been following, I don't know if you guys have been receiving your emails from ISB. There's been a lot of free webinars that have been going on, and a lot of information regarding the COVID-19 and some of the plans of what they plan on doing or not doing. So we'll find out more, as Ms. Baumler mentioned, about what the governor says. But also, like I said, on Monday, yesterday, just announcement came out. Illinois announces $25 million in a fast track grant for planned infrastructure projects. So they say first come, first served. That's a new one that just came out.
So
That's
actually,
yeah.
as soon as that came out, I did contact Alan and Craig regarding that grant, because I saw that it was first come, first serve. And we looked into it. There will be probably 48 projects, not only for schools, but also municipalities, to support mainly building projects that were shovel ready. So it really wasn't something that we would qualify for or have a chance to get at this point. But I did look into it. I called Alan right away. I really did.
So we have nothing
funny.
None of these other projects we were talking about that could be considered shovel ready?
Yeah, this is more like building a wing onto your school so you could add classrooms to socially distanced kids, or, you know, it's really, and Alan and Craig said it probably wouldn't be worth applying for, because we are in tier 2, and likely this money would go to tier 1 schools.
Okay.
But yeah, Sarah can attest. I called right away.
Yeah, I was just curious. It just came out and just hit my, just wanted to see, maybe there was more money out there.
Yep. I hear you. I know.
Well, that's it then. I mean, if you pay attention to your emails and stuff, if you're reading on them, and you can get onto any of those webinars, some of them have been pretty good. So that's all.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Old business. Any old business board wants to bring up?
Yes.
Sam, I have, oh, go ahead, Renzo. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I know prior to this pandemic, we discussed the traffic study presentation. I know, I guess my question is, when should we revisit that? Is it, I know we want the community to be involved, but do we have a virtual presentation just so we can, if we do open up on time, we can start the process and we have enough time to potentially implement some of these, what was discussed in the traffic study?
Sure. We could bring forward, the gentleman involved in the traffic study is willing to do the traffic, like we had scheduled the presentation. So his presentation is still around. We could bring that forward to the June or July board meeting for implementation in August, were we to start school. So I certainly can bring that forward. What would you recommend?
Well, just combining the question Renzo asked and what you just said, Stephanie, my suggestion would be, and I'd like some input from the rest of the board, reach out to this gentleman from the company, see if he's willing to even join us in a meeting similar to how Porter did today, Kim, and we can set up a presentation for him and he can kind of present remotely. That would be my suggestion.
That sounds fantastic. We certainly can do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Pasquale, you had some old business?
I did, and just for informational, today on social media, Ridgewood posted the feasibility study has officially been canceled. They're no longer moving forward with that. So there was a formal communication that came out today from Ridgewood High School District 234. And then the second thing I had was, where are we at with the Senator Martwick donation for our special projects, for our special project? Are we still moving forward with that? Are we?
I haven't heard anything back specifically. Stephanie, if you have?
No, Congressperson LaPointe did contact me and asked me to prioritize our list that we had submitted, and we prioritized the #1 project of the science lab at Giles. So we're just simply waiting to hear.
I wanted to touch on Pasquale's real quick and just say, you know, the consolidation study at Ridgewood, this board approved to help with any information simply because it was informative. This was not a plan to move forward with any consolidation. It was for information only. And just want to be clear that the reason stated on the release was not all the districts involved in the study agreed to give up information, and let it be known that we were not one of those districts. We wanted to get information to the community, and we fully prepared to give them access to any information needed.
I believe that to be accurate also. Right on point. We are not one of those districts. I didn't see the release. You guys, saw it. I didn't see it, but I agree with that as well. Anyone else? Old business? New business?
Why do we have to?
I have. Oh.
Sure, Mike, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just blurted it out. Yeah, but why are we renaming or changing the title for D?
We are working with a consultant, and we feel that title is more in line with how the consultant is helping us envision the entire MTSS process. The former title had MTSS in it, and this title does not. And it focuses on the piece that this person, her role is academic only, not the umbrella term of MTSS. So we just are trying to align it to our new vision and new program.
Okay.
That's all.
And that consultant is the lady from the library, correct?
No, this is through the grant. Maddie Phillips is a MTSS consultant to make sure our system that Kim just told us about, Kim just defined all that system is in place and has that fidelity that will help support our special education program.
So Mike, I think are you pertaining to something on the consent agenda with that?
Yeah. I was just-
Since we're in the discussion on it, if I may, since you brought it up, Mike, does this change any role for the assignments of that employee last year versus going into next year? And is there any change in compensations? Is it just simply a change of title or what?
So this person was a 5th grade science teacher, and she is taking on this new role for us. It is in place. We went from, there's absolutely no change in her compensation. She's still a teacher and a member of the bargaining unit. We eliminated a position in special education and are moving it to the MTSS world instead of special ed. So it's not an increase in positions at Giles at all. It's the same number of bargaining unit members at the building. We're just repurposing to make sure that our process is really solid for supporting our struggling learners.
Now, does that change anything with any of the reassignments over the past couple years to the grade centers, to where specific employees were moved to places where at that time they were seen as a better asset to the district?
I wouldn't know. That would speak to people in my position at the time. I have no idea. This is a role that I think is a wonderful fit for this individual, that she will provide leadership in this regard. Yeah, I think she's a great fit. She has a type 75 as well, which is a nice feature because she will be leading implementation of the title aids and leading them in making sure that they're helping to improve reading and mathematics at Giles. So
it has nothing to do with any of the moves in the past. It's a completely new position, completely new everything.
Yeah.
From the age world, there's nothing from the past.
I mean, this person did get moved to Giles, but we also had a science teacher in district who can take her place that is a wonderful fit as well. So I think it's a win-win.
Okay, and guys, moving forward for a minute, I am currently occupying a bedroom. I need to move, so I'm going to stay muted. You won't see me, but I will be able to hear you to continue.
Okay. Any other new business?
The only thing I had, Sam, was Stephanie, maybe about a week ago, you may have forwarded some information to us on, and I don't recall who it's from. I was trying to look for it, but I must have filed it somewhere, regarding if schools open, what the classroom could possibly look like. And they showed examples of no more than 16 kids. If that comes down from the state and we're mandated to follow that type of setup or structure, how any thoughts to that? I mean, obviously our classroom sizes range from 22 to 26, 27, if not more than that. I mean, how are we, I mean, I should have asked this to Craig, but if that were to come down, do we have the funds to add more teachers, or how would we?
That's not how it would work. We would have to come up with different plans, which is what we're going to be doing in the next 2 weeks, to provide education in person in a socially distanced way. So the person that sent that to me actually was Alan Armbrust from STR.
That's where it came from, yes.
And he had put together some, he basically did the math on the square footage and how to keep kids in a desk socially distanced. there's a lot of different options that we are going to talk about in our small groups as far as how this could work. Other, I like I say, I participate all the time, every week, with superintendents and principals and other leaders from other districts on what they're trying to do to anticipate what we might have to face in the fall. And there's all different options out there. In my mind, the number one thing is to get as many students back to in-person learning for as much time as we can in order to support our parents getting back to work. So, and obviously for all of the reasons that we believe that in-person learning is such a high quality experience for our kids. So we are exploring all sorts of different options, and we'd like some time to talk through what we think would be, good. I would love to hear from parents. We are planning to do some surveying of parents and even students on what they would like, but a lot of it revolves around keeping people safe at school. We literally do not have the classrooms to take every class of 24 and split it into 2 if everyone was on campus at the same time. So we have to come up with options where not everyone is on campus at the same time. School districts in other countries have brought back their youngest learners first and split them into different, into 2 rooms. So if you have a kindergarten class of 24, now we put that in 2 rooms. We have a teacher and an aide, and the teacher kind of goes back and forth and supervises and fosters a learning environment, that kind of thing, for a while. I don't know if that's going to be part of our plan. We're going to talk about it, and I'd love to hear, your thoughts. But yeah, it really, really depends on, like I said, the governor, the Illinois Department of Public Health, and what we're dealing with when it comes to August.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other new business? Board comments? I have a couple if nobody has any. Quickly, Teacher Appreciation Week was last week or early May. Thank you to the teachers. It's a tough time for everybody, including the teachers. So thank you for being creative and innovative during this time and staying strong. So we appreciate that. Also, Ms. Guzik, Ms. Hyde dropped off a appreciation book from your kindergarten students to the Howard Heights Police Department. And that book was placed in the Howard Heights Police roll call room for personnel to read and enjoy. Also on the Howard Heights Police Department webpage, we thanked Lee School, yourself, Ms. Guzik, and the students and the staff of the kindergarten. So much appreciated in that regard.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, just to make note that Norwich received theirs also, Sam, the police department. They received theirs, and yeah.
First responders, yes.
Yeah, I don't know who else received it. I can only speak on the knowledge that I have.
So, and
Yeah,
they
went out to a couple of medical facilities as well, and to Norwich, Howard Heights Police Departments, the Norwood Park Fire Department, Superintendent Palmer received one as well, and the Cook County Sheriff's Department.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Any discussion before I ask for a motion?
Well, typically it's done after the motion. I was going to ask to pull 2 to a separate vote. If you want me to do that now, I can, or after the motion.
You can do it now.
Okay, I'd like to pull G and K to separate.
So Tim, I've got to pull it up on my screen. What is G and K? Can you be specific?
G is motion to approve hiring of Melissa Cott, 4th grade Lee School. And K is motion to approve push coin contract.
All right, you want to move those for separate votes outside of consent?
Correct.
All right, so Sarah, I'm going to defer to you. We can do that. That's not a problem. We're going to do that after the consent before closed.
Should it not have been done before you approved the agenda as presented?
Typically in the past, we did it after we had the motion. We did discussion to pull them that was how I've done it in the past. That's why I was asking which way we wanted to do it now.
We can pull it. Either way, it's going to get pulled. We'll do it separately. My question is, do we vote on that before close or do we vote on it after?
In
The
past,
rest
we
of
did
the
it
action
before.
items are after.
All right, so we'll pull those from the consent. We'll make them each in action individually on Board Member Ludsden's request, and we'll do that after as an action each. I have no problem with that. Any other board member have an issue with that? So Sarah, can you please make note, line items G, George, K, King will be pulled for a separate individual vote.
Yes.
Okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda as it is now modified.
A motion?
I'll second.
Tim, seconded by Lou. Sarah, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ludsden?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yeah.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Biondo?
Yes.
Thank you, Sarah. The motion does carry. Moving on to closed session. I need a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, collective negotiating matters, purchase or lease of real property, student discipline, and review of closed session minutes.
I will motion.
Second.
Pasquale, seconded by Renzo. Sarah, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Biondo?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Ludsden?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. The motion does carry. Let it be noted, it's 10:31 p.m. We're going to take a break till 10. I need a motion to return to open session.
Motion.
A motion?
Made by Louis, seconded by Tim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. We are now back in open session on the 20th of May, 12:18 a.m. Moving on to action items. I want to make a comment before we go to each action item. I recommend a motion that approves a new one-year contract with 1.9% salary increases subject to attorney final review in regards to Kim Hansen, Director of Special Ed, Petter Hurley, Director of Building and Grounds, and John Job, Director of Technology.
Motion.
Motion made by Lou,
Second?
seconded by Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
No, roll call.
Roll call, please.
The
Sorry.
roll call.
Roll call. It's
That's
late.
okay.
Go ahead. Roll call on that.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Ludsden?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore?
Yes.
Mr. Biondo?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Sarah, I want to defer to you. I want to ask you a question. Does this board need to address those line by line, being that I just made that motion?
It can be included on each one,
Yeah, I'm gonna.
or I can change it to however you want it.
No,
But I believe it should be individual.
Yeah, I want to make it a matter of record like we did. We got the motions on it. We're going to do it one by
Yep.
one now. I need a
Okay.
motion to approve the contract for Kim Hansen, Director of Special Education,
I gotta do all
It
three.
approves a new one-year contract with 1.9% salary increase, subject to attorney final review.
A motion?
Motion by Tim,
Second,
seconded by Lou. Roll call, please, Sarah.
Mr. Ludston,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano,
yes.
Mr. Berardi,
Yes.
Mr. Biondo,
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo.
Yes. That motion does carry. I need a motion to approve the contract of Petter Hurley, Director of Building and Grounds, that approves a one-year contract with a 1.9% salary increase, subject to attorney final review.
A
I
motion?
will make them make,
Motion by Tim, seconded by Pasquale. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mr. Ludston,
Yes.
Mr. Biondo,
yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo, Mr. Berardi,
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the contract for John Job, Director of Technology. Contract approves a one-year contract with a 1.9% salary increase, subject to attorney final review.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mike, second by Pasquale. Roll call, please. Sarah.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Biondo,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano,
Yes.
Mr. Berardi,
Yes.
Mr. Ludston,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo.
Yes. Motion does carry. I need a motion to approve the maternity leave request for Aaron Savage, special ed school.
Motion.
A motion?
Louis, seconded by Tim. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mazzano,
Yes.
Mr. Ludston,
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo,
Yes.
Mr. Biondo,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
Yes.
Mr. Berardi.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I need a motion to approve the foreman job description and job posting.
A motion.
Second.
Is there a discussion, Mike?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Is there going to be the posting of, where's it going to be posted?
The district website.
District website, man.
The district website, anyplace else?
Usually we do K-12 job spot. Where else do we use, Michelle? Is there anybody else? We just K-12 and our district website.
That's what we've used.
Well, we don't have, I mean, I don't think we have anybody, but maybe the district, the Illinois.gov, there's a place there where they have a job site posting. Because of this thing here, there's no certification to have done.
Yeah, we can look into that. Illinois.gov. Sure.
And are we posting the amount of money they're offering?
It'll be commensurate with experience and certifications. But we budgeted a certain amount of money, and we'll look to bring that forward in the new budget. We have an idea of where we'd like to be, but we'd like to see what kind of experience we can get.
All right. I also like to see if that could be, well, it's too late now, but just because I think there should be some kind of certificate of boilers, what is it, the HVAC or something right there.
Right. So the posting
Apply for it.
a preferred certification, such as HVAC, such as plumbing, some sort of certification preferred, and that will help guide that.
Okay.
I got a follow-up question for what Mike asked. Stephanie, when the job description was made, Was that, who was involved in making that job description?
Me and Craig and Patter. I can't remember if we ran it by Michelle. I don't think so. But
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on that?
No.
I don't know who made the motion. I'm sorry. I need a motion for that.
It was Renzo and I.
Pasquale and Tim.
Thank you,
Oh.
Sarah. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo,
Yes.
Mr. Lutston,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano,
Yes.
Mr. Berardi.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I need a motion to approve citywide building and maintenance bid contingent on the agreement to modify the contract regarding delayed hiring if remote schooling occurs.
I'll make the motion.
A second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Paul. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Biondo,
Yes.
Mr. Berardi,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano,
Yes.
Mr. Lutston.
Yes.
Motion carries. I need a motion to approve Westway coach requested payment.
Motion.
Motion by Pasquale, seconded by Tim. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo,
No.
Mr. Lutston,
No.
Mr. Trabuzio,
No.
Mr. Palazzo,
No.
Mr. Berardi,
No.
Mr. Bellafiore,
No.
Mr. Mazzano.
No.
Okay, that motion does not carry. Going to the two items that were pulled off consent for action. Consent line item G as in George. I need a motion to approve the hiring of Melissa Cott, 4th grade Lee School.
A
Motion.
motion.
Tim and Lou, I believe. Roll call, Sarah.
Discussion? Discussion?
Go ahead, Tim.
Just to verify with Ms. Palmer, this is a rehire from a previous employee that was part of the reduction in force or non-renewal.
it was someone who is non-renewed. She has been working for us for 2 years and maybe even did a maternity leave before that. No, just straight up 2 years. So it's 2 years, and we did let her go in a couple months ago. So we're happy to bring her back. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah, do you have who made the motion and second?
I have motion by Mr. Lutston, second by Mr. Mazzano.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lutston,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano,
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore,
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio,
Yes.
Mr. Berardi,
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo,
Yes.
Mr. Biondo.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to our last action item, line item K King from consent, now moved as action. I need a motion to approve the push coin contract. Before that, any discussion?
A motion.
Any discussion, anybody?
Yes. Yeah. Discussion?
Go ahead, Tim.
I believe Michelle can do this. I was just looking for a brief explanation of what push coin is, why we're getting it, and how the district is going to use it.
Sure. So PushPoint is an online payment system that is, we're really excited about moving up to for the 2021 school year. Through this system, parents will be able to make payments from home. This is a partner along with our online registration system. So parents can do a payment plan, parents can set up a credit card to automatically deduct for their payments, and basically takes all of that out of our hands.
We can do an e-check. It's really going to be staff and administrative time chasing people for fees. It's just really, really huge improvement to the district. So
Yeah, this will actually really make a difference in time for us.
there's no cost to the district other than the setup costs, but you know, we really are excited because it'll bring back so much time. So
There is
This will
a slight,
help.
I'm sorry, let me just clarify that, because there is a slight cost.
yes.
Yeah, it's a slight cost to the district, about $4,000. And we'll review that then at the end of the next year. What we're predicting right now is a $4,000
Okay.
Setup costs, yes.
Yep. The rest of it really goes to the parents, and the parents are already paying that 2.95% when they use a credit card, so it's not any different to the parents. Really. And if they e-check, it doesn't cost them anything. They can still come in and make a payment cash to the Lee office. That still works too, and that's at no cost. So it's really a win-win all around. We are currently, just so you know, about $16,000 left to collect on fees for the 1920 school year, which we've collected about $10,000 in the last week.
Okay, I have a motion, please.
Pasquale made a motion.
This one,
I'll second.
Tim?
Sure, I'll second.
Yep. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Pasquale, you're muted.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Ludston?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Trabuzio?
Yes.
Mr. Bellafiore?
Yes.
Mr. Berardi?
Yes.
Okay, motion does carry. Each board member should have been emailed board reflection. Please fill that out, get it back to Sarah in the district office so we can better ourselves for next meeting. It's been a long one tonight, so I thank everybody, and I need a motion to adjourn May the 20th at 12:32 a.m.
I'll motion.
Second.
Tim, seconded by Frank. All in favor? Aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
And everybody get rest, be safe.
Thank you. Meeting
Good
adjourned.
night.
Night.
Good job.